Opening, the question everyone asks. Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we explore perhaps the most fundamental question humans have ever asked. What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? What are we supposed to be doing with this precious, brief existence? You have likely asked this question yourself, perhaps many times, perhaps in moments of crisis or confusion, perhaps in quiet contemplation, perhaps in the desperate search for meaning when life feels empty despite outward success. The world offers many answers. Society tells you the purpose is achievement, climb the ladder, accumulate wealth, gain status, leave a legacy. Culture says it's about family, about passing on your genes, about ensuring the next generation. Religion often says it's about earning your way to an afterlife, following rules to gain divine approval. But what if all of these answers, while not entirely wrong, are missing something essential? What if the Buddha discovered something about life's purpose that 99% of people never realize? What if the true purpose is so simple, so immediate, so available that we constantly overlook it while searching for something more complicated? Tonight, we will explore the Buddha's answer to life's purpose, not through abstract philosophy, but through stories, tales that illuminate what he discovered under the Bodhi tree, what he spent 45 years teaching, what transformed countless lives across millennia. This may challenge what you believe, it may feel uncomfortable at times, or it may feel like coming home to something you've always known but couldn't quite name. Either way, allow yourself to remain open, curious, willing to question even your most cherished assumptions. Find a comfortable position, let your body settle. Take a deep breath and release it slowly. Let this journey begin. Part 1. What 99% think is the purpose. The successful man's emptiness. There was once a man who did everything right. He studied hard, graduated at the top of his class, got into the best university. He worked tirelessly, climbing the corporate ladder faster than his peers. He married well, had beautiful children, bought a large house in a prestigious neighborhood. By age 45, he was wealthy, respected, admired. He had achieved every goal he'd set for himself. And yet, he was utterly, devastatingly empty inside. One night, unable to sleep, he stood in his expensive home surrounded by the symbols of his success and felt nothing. Not joy, not satisfaction, not peace. Just a hollow ache, a gnawing question. Is this all there is? He had done what everyone said would make him happy. He had followed the script society provided. Work hard, achieve success, accumulate wealth, create security for your family. He had checked every box, and yet the promised fulfillment never arrived. In desperation, he sought out a Buddhist teacher he'd heard about, an old woman who lived simply and was said to be deeply wise. "Teacher," he said, "I've achieved everything I was supposed to achieve. I've done everything society told me would make me happy, but I feel empty. What's wrong with me?" The old woman looked at him with kind eyes. "Nothing is wrong with you. You're experiencing the natural consequence of pursuing the wrong purpose." "What do you mean, wrong purpose?" he asked, defensive. "I've worked to support my family, to contribute to society, to build something meaningful." "And those are not bad things," she agreed. "But tell me, why did you do them?" He thought about this. To be successful, to be secure, to be respected. "And why did you want those things?" "So I could be happy, of course." "Ah," she said, "so your true purpose was happiness, and you thought achievement, success, and security would bring it to you." "Yes, isn't that what everyone thinks?" "Yes," she said, "and that's exactly the problem. You've spent 45 years pursuing happiness in the future, happiness through achievement, happiness as a result of getting what you want. But happiness doesn't work that way." She continued, "The Buddha taught that there are two kinds of happiness. The first is the happiness of getting what you want, a new possession, a promotion, a pleasant experience. This happiness is real but temporary. It fades quickly, and then you need the next thing to feel happy again. You have experienced this, yes? He nodded, thinking of all the times he'd felt a brief thrill at achieving something, only to quickly adapt and start wanting the next thing. The second kind of happiness, she said, is the happiness of being, not getting. It's the happiness that comes from being fully present, from accepting what is, from living with awareness and compassion. This happiness doesn't depend on circumstances. It's available whether you're rich or poor, successful or struggling, achieving or resting. You've spent your life pursuing the first kind of happiness through achievement, but the Buddhist teaching points to the second kind. He didn't say the purpose of life is to achieve things. He said the purpose is to wake up, to be present, to end the suffering that comes from constantly chasing the next thing. The man sat in silence, feeling something shift in his understanding. So all my achievements were meaningless? Not meaningless, the teacher corrected gently, but not the purpose. They were things that happened while you were alive. The question is, were you actually present for your life, or were you always mentally in the future chasing the next goal? The man realized with a shock that he couldn't remember the last time he'd been fully present. His mind was always on the next meeting, the next project, the next achievement. He'd spent 45 years living in the future, and now that future had arrived, and it felt empty because he'd never actually been present for his life. "What should I do?" he asked quietly. "Start being here," she said simply. "Not later, not when you achieve the next thing, not when circumstances are perfect. Here, now, this breath, this moment, this is your life happening. And the purpose is not to achieve something later. The purpose is to be awake for this." Over the following months, the man began to practice presence. He didn't quit his job or give away his possessions, but he stopped living for the next achievement and started actually experiencing his life. When he was with his children, he was truly with them, not thinking about work. When he ate a meal, he actually tasted it. When he walked, he felt his feet on the ground. And slowly, the emptiness began to fill with something he'd never experienced before, a quiet contentment that didn't depend on circumstances, a peace that was always available when he stopped looking into the future for it. Years later, people would ask him about the change in him, the peace he radiated. He would say, "I spent the first half of my life chasing success, thinking that was the purpose. I spent the second half learning to be present and discovered that was the purpose all along. I achieved success, but missed my life. Now I'm just living my life, and that's more fulfilling than any achievement ever was." This story illuminates the fundamental mistake 99% of people make, believing that life's purpose is external achievement. We're conditioned from childhood to believe that purpose lies in doing, achieving, becoming. Get good grades, get into a good school, get a good job, get promotions, get wealth, get security, get respect. But the Buddha's insight was radically different. He taught that this entire approach leads to suffering because it's based on a false premise that happiness and fulfillment come from getting what you want. This creates an endless cycle. Want something, get it, feel briefly satisfied, adapt to having it, want the next thing. The successful man had everything he'd been told would make him happy, yet felt empty. This is not unusual. It's nearly universal among people who achieve conventional success. Because conventional success was never the purpose. It was just something the mind convinced you would finally make you happy. The Buddhist teaching points to a completely different understanding of purpose. Not achieving something in the future, but being present now. Not getting what you want, but waking up to what is. Not becoming someone special, but recognizing what you already are. This doesn't mean you shouldn't work, shouldn't have goals, shouldn't achieve things. It means understanding that these activities are not the purpose. They're just what happens while you're alive. The actual purpose is to be awake for your life, to be present, to stop postponing your aliveness until some future achievement. Consider your own life. How much of it have you spent in the future believing that when you achieve X, then you'll be happy? And when you achieved X, did it bring lasting fulfillment, or did your mind just create a new goal, a new condition for happiness? The emptiness the successful man felt is not a personal failing. It's the natural result of pursuing the wrong purpose. You can't fill the emptiness with more achievements because achievements were never meant to fill it. The emptiness is filled by presence, by actually living your life instead of always preparing for some future version of life. Rest in this teaching. Feel what it might mean to stop living for the future and start being present for now. This moment, this breath, this is your life, not preparation for life, but life itself. The woman who collected purposes. In a village lived a woman who was obsessed with finding her life's purpose. She read every book on the subject, attended every workshop, consulted every teacher she could find. Each offered a different answer, and she tried them all. One teacher said her purpose was to express her creativity, so she spent months painting, writing, making music. But eventually she grew bored and restless, feeling this couldn't be her true purpose. Another teacher said her purpose was to serve others, so she volunteered at hospitals, served food to the homeless, dedicated herself to charitable work. But after a while, she felt exhausted and resentful, still sensing something was missing. A third teacher said her purpose was spiritual growth, so she meditated for hours, studied sacred texts, attended retreats. But she found herself constantly measuring her progress, feeling inadequate, never quite enlightened enough. A fourth teacher said her purpose was to create a legacy, to leave something behind that would outlast her. So she worked to build organizations, create programs, make her mark on the world. But this too eventually felt hollow. Each purpose she tried felt right for a while, then faded. She collected purposes like some people collect hobbies, always searching for the one that would finally click, that would finally answer the gnawing question, "What am I here for?" Finally, exhausted and more confused than ever, she sought out a Zen master who lived in a small temple in the mountains. "Master," she said, "I've tried every purpose I can think of. I've dedicated myself to creativity, to service, to spirituality, to legacy. Nothing feels right. What is my true purpose?" The master was preparing tea. He didn't answer immediately, just continued his careful, precise movements, heating the water, warming the pot, measuring the leaves, pouring with complete attention. Finally, he handed her a cup of tea and asked, "What am I doing?" She was confused. "You're giving me tea?" she said. "No," he said. "I'm making tea. That's all. When I make tea, I make tea. When I sweep, I sweep. When I sit, I sit. I'm not doing these things to achieve some larger purpose. The doing itself is the purpose." "But that's too simple," she protested. "There has to be more to life than just doing whatever you're doing." "Why?" he asked. She struggled to answer. "Because we need purpose. We need to know why we're here, what we're supposed to accomplish." "Who told you that?" the master asked gently. "Everyone, society, culture, religion, they all say life needs purpose." "Yes," the master agreed, "and that belief has made you miserable, hasn't it? Always searching for purpose, never finding it, collecting different purposes like shells on a beach, none of them quite right." He poured himself tea and took a sip. "What if there is no grand purpose? What if life is just life, and the meaning is simply in the living of it?" "That sounds nihilistic," she said, "like nothing matters." "No," the master said, "it's the opposite of nihilism. Nihilism says nothing matters, so why bother? I'm saying everything matters. This cup of tea, this moment, this breath, not because it serves some larger purpose, but simply because it is. It doesn't need to mean anything more than what it is. Let me ask you, when you were doing all those things, painting, serving others, meditating, building organizations, were you present with the doing, or were you always thinking about whether it was the right purpose? She realized he was right. She'd been so focused on whether each activity was her true purpose that she'd never fully engaged with any of them. She'd been doing them all while mentally elsewhere, evaluating, judging, measuring against some imagined ideal purpose.
I was never present, she admitted. I was always asking, is this it? Is this my purpose? Exactly, the master said. You were so busy searching for purpose that you missed the only purpose that exists, to be fully present for whatever you're doing. Not because it's important, not because it will achieve something, just because you're alive and this is what's happening. But doesn't the Buddha teach that we should end suffering, become enlightened, help others awaken? Aren't those purposes? In one sense, yes, the master acknowledged, but they're not purposes to achieve in the future. They're descriptions of what naturally happens when you stop chasing purpose and start being present. When you're truly here, suffering decreases. When you're awake to this moment, that's enlightenment. When you embody presence, others naturally learn from you. These aren't goals to achieve, they're side effects of letting go of the need for purpose. The woman sat with this teaching. Something in her was resisting, wanting to maintain that there must be some grand purpose, some important reason for existence. But another part of her felt a strange relief. What if she could stop searching? What if she could just live? So what should I do with my life? She asked. The master smiled. Whatever you're doing. If you're making tea, make tea with full attention. If you're walking, walk. If you're helping someone, help them completely. If you're creating something, create it. Not because these things will lead you to your purpose, but because doing them fully, presently, is the purpose. That's it? She asked. Just be present? That's everything, the master replied. In the years that followed, the woman stopped searching for purpose. She stopped collecting different purposes and trying them on like clothes. She simply lived, doing what arose naturally to do, but doing it with complete presence. Paradoxically, her life became more meaningful than it had ever been when she was desperately searching for meaning. She still did many of the same activities, creating art, serving others, meditating, contributing to her community, but now she did them from presence rather than from the anxiety of not knowing her purpose. When people would ask her, "What's your purpose?" she would smile and say, "Right now, talking to you. In an hour? Who knows? My purpose is always just this, being fully present for whatever is happening." And strangely, that answer satisfied something deep in people who heard it, even though it was nothing like what they expected. This story addresses another trap in the search for life's purpose, the belief that there is one specific purpose you must discover and that your life won't be meaningful until you find it. This belief creates enormous anxiety and keeps people in perpetual seeking, never fully engaging with life because they're always wondering if this is really their purpose. The woman's collection of purposes represents how we often approach this question. We try on different identities, different roles, different missions. I'm an artist, I'm a helper, I'm a seeker, I'm a builder. Hoping one will finally feel right, will finally answer the question of why we're here. But the Zen master points to something radically different. What if there is no grand purpose to discover? What if the belief that you need a special purpose is itself the problem? This doesn't mean life is meaningless or that what you do doesn't matter. It means that meaning isn't something you find or achieve. It's something that emerges from complete presence with whatever you're doing. When you make tea with full attention, tea making is meaningful.
When you're fully present with someone, that moment is meaningful, not because these things serve some larger purpose, but because presence itself is the source of meaning. The paradox is that when you stop searching for purpose and start being present, your life becomes more meaningful than it ever was during the desperate search. The searching itself was the obstacle. The Master's teaching about side effects is crucial. Enlightenment, ending suffering, helping others, these aren't purposes to strive toward. They're natural results of letting go of the striving and being present. You don't end suffering by making it your purpose to end suffering. That just creates more suffering, the suffering of not yet achieving your purpose. You end suffering by being so present that the mental patterns that create suffering naturally dissolve. This is deeply counter to how we're conditioned to think. We're taught to have goals, to strive, to achieve. The idea that purpose might not be about achieving something, but about being present can feel disorienting, even threatening. If there's no purpose to achieve, who are we? What do we do with our lives? The answer is, you live. You do what arises naturally to do, but you do it with presence rather than from the anxiety of seeking purpose. You create, you work, you love, you serve, not because these things are your purpose, but because you're alive and these are what life involves. The meaning is in the doing, not in what the doing achieves. Consider, how much energy have you spent searching for your purpose? How much anxiety have you felt about not knowing your purpose? What would it feel like to stop searching and simply be present for your actual life? The woman's final answer is beautiful. My purpose is always just this, being fully present for whatever is happening. Not one grand purpose for her whole life, but the continuous practice of being present for each moment. This is a purpose that can never be lost, never be wrong, never need to be discovered, because it's always available right now. Breathe. Be present. This moment. This is it.
Part 2. The Buddha's Discovery. Under the Bodhi Tree. Let us now turn to the Buddha's own story, his discovery of life's true purpose. Siddhartha Gautama was born a prince, given every luxury, protected from suffering. But in his late 20s, he encountered the realities of life that had been hidden from him: sickness, old age, death. These encounters shook him profoundly. He realized that no amount of wealth or pleasure could protect against these inevitable sufferings. So he left his palace, his family, his comfort, and became a wandering ascetic, searching for the answer to suffering. He studied with the greatest spiritual teachers of his time. He practiced extreme asceticism, nearly starving himself to death. He tried every method, every path, every teaching available to him, and nothing worked. After 6 years of intensive spiritual practice, he was no closer to the answer than when he began. Exhausted, near death from his austerities, he finally gave up. He accepted food from a village girl, sat down under a tree, and made a simple resolve. He would sit here until he either found the answer or died trying. But he would stop striving, stop trying to force understanding, stop seeking in the future for what he'd been unable to find. He just sat, present, aware, not trying to achieve anything. And in that stopping, in that releasing of all seeking, something profound happened. He saw clearly how suffering arises, not from external circumstances, but from the mind's constant craving and aversion, its constant reaching for pleasant experiences and pushing away unpleasant ones, its constant belief that happiness exists somewhere else than here. He saw that all his seeking had been the problem, that the spiritual practices themselves, when done with the energy of grasping and becoming, only reinforced the very patterns they were meant to dissolve. He realized that the purpose of life is not to achieve some future state called enlightenment. The purpose is simply to wake up to what is, right now,
to see clearly, to be present without craving, without aversion, without the constant mental story about how things should be different. This was revolutionary. Every other teacher was telling people they needed to achieve something, become something, get somewhere. The Buddha realized that the entire approach was backwards. You don't need to become enlightened. You need to stop obscuring your natural awareness with constant seeking and striving. When he stood up from under the Bodhi tree, people asked him, "What did you achieve? What did you become?" And his answer was radically simple. "I woke up. I stopped dreaming that happiness exists somewhere else and saw that it's available right here when the mind stops its constant seeking." For the next 45 years, he taught this insight, not as a philosophy to believe, but as something people could discover for themselves by stopping the endless seeking and being present with what is. His teaching can be summed up simply. The purpose of life is to end suffering, and suffering ends not by getting what you want or achieving some special state, but by understanding that suffering arises from craving and aversion, from wanting things to be different than they are. When that understanding is complete, when you can be fully present without constantly wishing this moment were different, suffering ends. Not because your circumstances are perfect, but because you've stopped being at war with what is. This is radically different from what 99% of people think. Most people think the purpose is to achieve a life where everything goes the way they want. The Buddha said the purpose is to stop needing everything to go the way you want. Most people think the purpose is to become someone special, someone enlightened, someone successful. The Buddha said the purpose is to see through the very idea that you need to become anything other than you are. Most people think happiness comes from getting what they want. The Buddha said happiness comes from wanting what you have, or more precisely, from the ending of the constant wanting and not wanting that creates suffering. This teaching challenged everything in his culture, just as it challenges everything in ours. We're told from birth that the purpose is achievement, accumulation, becoming. The Buddha's awakening was the realization that this entire approach creates suffering, and that freedom lies not in achieving, but in being, not in becoming, but in seeing what you already are. Under the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha didn't become the Buddha. He woke up to what he had always been, awareness itself, presence itself, the consciousness in which all experience arises. He didn't gain something he lacked. He saw through what he had mistakenly believed he lacked. And this seeing was the answer to the question he'd been seeking for 6 years. What is the purpose of life? The purpose is to wake up from the dream that you need to achieve purpose. The purpose is to be so fully present that the question itself dissolves, because you realize you are already what you were seeking. This is the Buddha's answer that 99% miss. We hear his teachings and turn them into another thing to achieve. I will become enlightened. But that's the same pattern, the same seeking in the future for what's available now. The actual teaching is, stop seeking, be here, this is it. Not in the future, not when you achieve something, not when you become someone special. Right now, this breath, this moment, this awareness that's reading these words, this is what you were seeking. You are already home. You just didn't realize it because you were looking everywhere else. Rest in this revolutionary understanding. Feel what it might mean to stop seeking and simply be, not as a future achievement, but as what's already happening right now. You are aware, you are conscious, you exist. This is not nothing, this is everything. And being fully present for this, being awake to this simple fact of existence, this is the purpose the Buddha discovered. Everything else is commentary, everything else is elaboration, but the heart of it is this simple. Wake up, be here, see what is, stop seeking elsewhere for what's already present. This is the purpose, not what 99% think, but but what the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree 2,500 years ago, and what remains true in this moment now. Breathe, be present, be awake. This is it.
The teaching of the Four Noble Truths. After his awakening, the Buddha's first formal teaching articulated what he had discovered. These are called the Four Noble Truths, and they directly address the question of life's purpose. The first noble truth: life involves suffering, or dukkha. This doesn't mean life is only suffering, but that suffering is an inevitable part of human existence. Pain, loss, disappointment, aging, illness, death, these are not failures or punishments. They're simply part of being alive in a human body. Most people hear this and feel depressed, but the Buddha wasn't being pessimistic. He was being realistic. If you start by denying that life involves difficulty, you'll waste tremendous energy pretending everything should always be pleasant. You'll suffer from your suffering, the first arrow of pain plus the second arrow of your resistance to pain. The second noble truth: suffering has a cause. It arises from craving, or tanha, and clinging. We suffer not because difficult things happen. That's just the first truth. We suffer because we want things to be different than they are. We crave pleasure and try to hold on to it. We resist pain and try to push it away. We grasp at experiences, people, states of mind, trying to make them permanent when everything is impermanent. This is revolutionary. The Buddha is saying that suffering is not caused by circumstances, but by our relationship to circumstances. You don't suffer because you lost your job. You suffer because you're resisting the loss, wishing it hadn't happened, fearing the future, clinging to how things used to be. The circumstances create pain, which is inevitable, but the suffering comes from your mental resistance to those circumstances. This means that even in difficult situations, there can be peace, not because the situation isn't difficult, but because you're not adding layers of mental suffering to the actual pain. The third noble truth: suffering can end. Because suffering arises from mental patterns, craving and clinging, and because we can change mental patterns, suffering can actually cease. Not by changing your circumstances, but by changing your relationship to your circumstances. This is where the Buddha's teaching becomes deeply hopeful. You're not doomed to suffer. Suffering is not inevitable. It arises from specific causes, and when those causes cease, suffering ceases. The purpose of life, then, is to end suffering, not by getting everything you want, by ending the craving and clinging that create suffering. The fourth noble truth: there is a path to the end of suffering. The Buddha called it the Eightfold Path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is not a set of rules to follow, but a description of how to live in a way that naturally reduces suffering. Right view means seeing reality clearly, understanding impermanence, understanding cause and effect, understanding that suffering comes from craving. Right intention means orienting your life towards freedom rather than towards endless accumulation. Right speech, action, and livelihood mean living ethically, not from rigid rules, but from understanding that harmful actions create suffering for yourself and others. Right effort means applying yourself to the path, but with balance, not with the grasping energy that creates more suffering. Right mindfulness and concentration mean developing the capacity to be present, to see clearly, to not get lost in mental stories. Together, these four noble truths completely reframe the question of life's purpose. The purpose is not to achieve success, accumulate wealth, gain status, create a legacy. The purpose is to end suffering
by understanding its causes and living in a way that addresses those causes. This is not what 99% think. Most people think the purpose is to maximize pleasure and minimize pain, to create a life where everything goes the way they want. But the Buddha saw that this approach is the problem. As long as your happiness depends on circumstances being a certain way, you'll suffer because circumstances are always changing. The alternative, he offered, is radical. What if you could be at peace regardless of circumstances, not because you've become numb or indifferent, but because you've stopped needing things to be different than they are, not because nothing difficult happens, but because you're no longer at war with difficulty when it arises. This is the purpose, to wake up from the dream that happiness comes from circumstances and realize that peace comes from presence, from acceptance, from being with what is without constant craving for it to be different. The Four Noble Truths are sometimes described as being like a medical diagnosis and treatment. The first truth is the diagnosis, your suffering. The second truth identifies the disease, craving and clinging. The third truth is the prognosis, this disease is curable. The fourth truth is the treatment, here's how to cure it. The purpose of life in this framework is to heal from the disease of constant craving, constant dissatisfaction, constant seeking, not by getting everything you want, by ending the tyranny of wanting itself. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop having preferences. It means you stop believing that your peace depends on getting what you prefer. You can prefer pleasant experiences over painful ones, that's natural, but your fundamental well-being doesn't collapse when life brings the painful instead of the pleasant. This is true freedom, not the freedom to always get what you want, that's impossible, but the freedom to be okay even when you don't get what you want. The freedom to be at peace with what is, even when what is involves difficulty. And this freedom, this ending of suffering through understanding its causes, this is the purpose the Buddha discovered. Not achievement, not accumulation, not becoming someone special, just the simple freedom of being present without constant craving, without constant resistance, without constant suffering. Rest in this teaching. Feel what it might mean to live for this purpose, not to achieve something in the future, but to be free from suffering by understanding how suffering arises and ceases. This is available now, not later, not when you're more advanced, not when you've meditated enough or understood enough. Now, in this moment, can you be with what is without wishing it were different? That's the practice. That's the purpose. That's what the Buddha discovered. Breathe. Accept this moment as it is. Feel the peace that comes when wanting ceases, even for a moment. This is the purpose. This is the path. This is what 99% miss while searching for something more complicated.
Part 3. The Paradox of Purposelessness. The Master Who Had No Purpose. A young seeker traveled far to study with a renowned Zen master. On his first day, he asked eagerly, "Master, what is your purpose? What is the meaning of your life?" The master was sweeping leaves from the temple courtyard. He didn't stop sweeping. He didn't even look up. He just continued his simple, repetitive task. The student waited, thinking the master hadn't heard him. Finally, he asked again, louder, "Master, what is your purpose?" The master finished sweeping a particular section, then turned to the student. "Right now? Sweeping leaves." The student was frustrated. "No, I mean your larger purpose, your life's purpose. Why are you here? What are you meant to do?" The master smiled. "I have no purpose." The student was shocked. "How can you have no purpose? Don't you teach students? Don't you practice meditation? Don't you care about enlightenment?" "I teach when students come. I meditate when it's time to meditate.
I sweep when there are leaves to sweep. But these aren't purposes, they're just what's happening. But that sounds empty, the student protested. Without purpose, what's the point of anything? Without the burden of purpose, the master replied, everything has its own point. This leaf, he picked one up, doesn't need a purpose to be perfect. This moment doesn't need meaning imposed on it from outside. It has its own isness, its own suchness. Purpose is something the seeking mind adds. The leaf doesn't add it. That's why the leaf is more free than you are. He continued sweeping. The student watched, confused and a bit angry. He had traveled so far to learn from this master, and the master was telling him he had no purpose? Days passed. The student watched the master. Every activity was done with complete attention, sweeping, cooking, eating, sitting, walking, but there was no sense of striving, no sense of these activities serving some larger goal. The master simply did what arose to be done, fully, completely. One morning, the student was watching the master prepare tea. Every movement was precise, careful, complete. The master's full attention was on each gesture, warming the pot, measuring the leaves, pouring the water. "Master," the student asked, "why do you put so much care into making tea if it has no purpose?" The master looked at him with bright eyes. "Because I'm making tea. What other purpose does it need?" "But it will be drunk and then it's gone. What's the point of all that care for something so temporary?" "Ah, now we're getting somewhere. You think things need to last to have meaning. You think activities need to serve some lasting purpose. But life is nothing but temporary things. Every moment arises and goes. Every experience comes and goes. If temporary things have no meaning, then nothing has meaning." He poured tea for both of them. "Or," he continued, "if you can find the meaning in this moment, in this cup of tea, in this breath, in this conversation, then everything has meaning, not because it lasts, not because it serves some grand purpose, but simply because it is." The student sipped his tea. It was delicious, perfect, and then it was gone. "You see," the master said, "the tea was perfect. It fulfilled its tea nature completely. It needed no other purpose than to be tea, to be drunk, to be appreciated. And now it's gone, and that's perfect too. Nothing needs to last forever to be complete." Over the following weeks, something began to shift in the student. He stopped constantly asking about purpose and started actually being present. And paradoxically, the more he let go of needing a purpose, the more meaningful everything became. One day, he was sweeping leaves just as he'd seen the master do, and suddenly he understood. The sweeping didn't need a purpose beyond sweeping. It was complete in itself. And in that moment of complete presence with sweeping, there was a kind of meaning that didn't need to be named or justified. He found the master and said, "I think I understand. When I'm seeking purpose, I'm always somewhere else, in the future, in my head, in some imagined meaning. But when I'm just present with what is, there's a kind of meaning that doesn't need to be named or justified." The master nodded. "Now you're beginning to understand purposelessness. It's not nihilism, it's not that nothing matters, it's that things matter in themselves, not because they serve some larger purpose. This moment matters not because it leads to something important later, but because it's what's happening now. Your life has meaning not because you achieve some special purpose, but because you're alive and awareness is occurring." "So the purpose is just being alive? Being aware?" the student asked. "Not even that, because if you make being alive or being aware into a purpose, you'll start trying to achieve them, measuring whether you're doing them well enough. No purpose at all, just this, just being, not for any reason, just because this is what is." Years later, when this student became a teacher himself, people would ask him, "What is the purpose of life?" He would smile and say, "That question assumes you're lacking something, that life needs justification or meaning imposed from outside. But life is its own meaning. Existence is its own purpose. When you're fully present, the question dissolves because you see that everything is already complete just as it is." And sometimes, he would add, the seeking mind wants a purpose it can pursue, but the Buddhist teaching points to a different possibility, the freedom of purposelessness, where every moment is complete in itself, needing no justification, no meaning beyond what it is. This sounds empty to the seeking mind, but when you actually experience it, it's the fullest, most meaningful way to live. This story addresses one of the most challenging aspects of the Buddhist teaching, the paradox of purposelessness. In trying to articulate life's purpose, we risk creating another thing to achieve, another way to feel inadequate. The deepest teaching might be that life needs no purpose at all. This is extremely difficult for the goal-oriented mind to grasp. We're conditioned to always have a purpose, always be working towards something. The idea of purposelessness sounds like nihilism, like nothing matters, like life is empty. But the Master demonstrates something different. He's not depressed or disconnected. He's fully engaged with life, sweeping with complete attention, making tea with great care, teaching students with genuine presence. But he's not doing these things to achieve some purpose. He's doing them because they're what's arising to be done, and doing them fully is its own meaning.
The teaching about the leaf is profound. The leaf doesn't need a purpose to be perfect. It simply is what it is, doing what leaves do, and that's complete. Human beings, with our self-consciousness and conceptual thinking, add the layer of purpose. We need to know why, need to justify, need to make things meaningful. But this adding is actually a subtraction. It takes us out of the simple isness of life and puts us in our heads, evaluating, measuring, wondering if this is the right purpose. The Master's tea ceremony illustrates another key point. Temporary things can be complete. We think things need to last to have meaning, but actually, the temporary nature of things is part of their beauty. The tea is perfect precisely because it won't last. The moment is precious precisely because it's passing. When the student finally gets it, it's through direct experience, not through understanding the concept. He's sweeping leaves without seeking purpose, and in that purposeless presence, he discovers a meaning that's more profound than any purpose could provide. This is the paradox. Purposelessness is not meaningless. It's meaning without the burden of purpose. The Buddha's teaching, taken to its depths, points to this. You don't need a purpose. Life doesn't need to be justified or explained or given meaning from outside. The seeking of purpose is itself a form of suffering, a way of saying, this moment isn't enough just as it is. It needs to mean something, to lead somewhere, to be part of some larger purpose. But what if this moment is enough? What if your life doesn't need to accomplish anything to be valuable? What if just being alive, being aware, being present is already complete? This teaching doesn't mean you become passive. The Master still teaches, still sweeps, still makes tea. But these activities arise naturally from presence, not from the seeking mind trying to achieve some purpose. It doesn't mean you have no values or preferences. You can prefer that people don't suffer. You can work to reduce suffering. But you do it from presence, from compassion, not from the anxious belief that you must achieve some purpose or your life will be meaningless. The freedom in this is immense. If life needs no purpose, then you can't fail. You can't waste your life. You can't get it wrong. Whatever happens is what happens,
Whatever you do is what you do. All of it is life occurring. All of it is complete just as it is. This might sound like it would lead to apathy, but the opposite is true. When you're not burdened by needing to achieve some purpose, you can be fully present with what is. And full presence naturally leads to care, to compassion, to doing what seems right without the anxiety of wondering if you're fulfilling your purpose. Consider, what if you have no purpose? What if the whole seeking of purpose has been the obstacle to actually living? What would change if you stopped trying to figure out your purpose and just lived, fully present for each moment as it arises? This is perhaps the deepest teaching, the one that goes beyond all others. Not a purpose to achieve, but the freedom of purposelessness. Not meaning to create, but the simple isness of existence, complete in every moment. Rest in this possibility. Feel what it might be like to need no purpose, to simply be here without justification or meaning or goal. Just this breath, just this moment, just being alive, complete, already perfect, needing nothing added. This is the paradox. In seeking no purpose, you find the deepest meaning. In needing nothing, you have everything. In simply being, you fulfill what seeking could never achieve. Breathe. Be. No purpose needed. This is complete.
Part 4. Being versus doing. The monk who did nothing. In a busy monastery filled with hard-working monks, there lived one monk who seemed to do nothing at all. While others copied scriptures, he sat. While others studied teachings, he sat. While others performed elaborate rituals, he sat. The other monks began to resent him. "Why doesn't he contribute?" they complained to the abbot. "We all work hard while he just sits there doing nothing." The abbot smiled but said nothing. One day, a wealthy patron visited the monastery. He had donated significant funds and wanted to see how the monks were using his money. The abbot showed him around, the library where monks studied, the scriptorium where they copied texts, the meditation hall, the gardens. Then they came upon the monk who did nothing. He was sitting, as always, still and present, doing nothing in particular. "And what does this monk do?" the patron asked, somewhat disapprovingly. Before the abbot could answer, the sitting monk opened his eyes and spoke. "I do the most important work of all. I simply am." The patron was confused. But surely copying scriptures or growing food or teaching students is more important than just sitting. The monk said gently, "All those activities are valuable, but they're all forms of doing. What I do is being, and being is the foundation upon which all doing rests. Without being, doing becomes compulsive, driven, exhausting. With being, doing flows naturally, appropriately, sustainably." He continued, "Watch the other monks carefully. Many of them are doing, but they're not present for their doing. They copy scriptures while thinking about lunch. They meditate while planning their next task. They're so busy doing that they've forgotten how to simply be. And this forgetfulness creates suffering, even in spiritual activities." The patron sat down. "Explain this to me." "The world of doing," the monk said, "is the world of constant activity, constant becoming, constant striving to be somewhere other than here. I will study so I can know. I will meditate so I can become enlightened. I will work so I can be successful. All of it is reaching into the future, believing that doing will eventually lead to being okay. But being is already here. You don't have to do anything to be. You already are. The practice is simply to recognize this, to rest in it,
to stop constantly reaching for the future and be present for now. But if everyone just sat and was, nothing would get done, the patron protested. That's the interesting thing, the monk replied. When you learn how to be, doing doesn't stop. It actually becomes more effective. But now it comes from being rather than from compulsive striving. You work when work arises, but you're present for the working. You rest when rest arises, and you're present for the resting. You're not always somewhere else in your head, evaluating whether you're doing enough or being productive enough. The abbot added, "This monk's doing nothing has transformed this entire monastery. His presence, his simple being has taught the other monks more than all my lectures ever could. They see him sitting in complete peace, and they begin to question their own constant busyness. They begin to realize that all they're doing is often just avoidance of being." The patron sat in silence for a long time, watching the monk who did nothing, and slowly he began to feel something he hadn't felt in years, a deep restfulness, a sense that right now, in this moment, nothing needed to be done, no problem needed to be solved, no goal needed to be achieved. Just this sitting, this breathing, this being alive. "I've spent my entire life doing," he said quietly, "building my business, making money, solving problems, achieving goals. I've been very successful, but I've never felt what I'm feeling right now, this sense of being okay without having to do anything." The monk nodded. "That's being. It's always been available, but you've been too busy doing to notice. The tragedy is that all you're doing was ultimately in service of being okay. You thought if you achieved enough, accumulated enough, solved enough problems, then you could finally rest, finally just be. But being is not something you earn through doing. It's what you are, right now, beneath all the doing." The patron visited the monastery every week after that. Each time he would sit with the monk who did nothing, and gradually he began to transform. His business continued, but he was no longer driven by it. He still worked, but from a place of presence rather than compulsion. He still did things, but being was the foundation. Years later, when people would ask him about the turning point in his life, he would say, "I met a monk who taught me how to do nothing, and in learning to do nothing, I discovered the only thing that truly matters: being present, being alive, being here. All the doing I used to think was so important was really just me running from the simplicity of being." And he would add, "Now I still do things, maybe even more things than before, but I'm not doing them to finally be okay. I'm doing them from being okay, and that changes everything." This story addresses one of the most challenging teachings for modern people: the primacy of being over doing. We live in a culture obsessed with doing, with productivity, with constant activity. The idea that doing nothing could be the most important work sounds absurd, even offensive. But the monk points to something crucial. Most of our doing is compulsive, driven by the belief that if we do enough, achieve enough, accomplish enough, then we'll finally be okay. We'll finally be able to rest, to be at peace. But that moment never comes because we're approaching it backwards. Being is not something you achieve through doing. Being is what you already are. You exist, you're conscious, you're alive. This is not something you need to earn or deserve or become. It already is. The problem is that we're so identified with doing, so caught in constant activity, that we've lost touch with simple being. We've forgotten how to just exist without having to accomplish something, prove something, become something.
The monk's practice of doing nothing is not laziness or avoidance. It's the deliberate cultivation of being as the foundation for all doing. When you learn to be,
to simply be present without constantly reaching for the future, then doing can arise naturally from that presence rather than from compulsive striving. The patron represents most of us, a lifetime spent doing, achieving, solving, building, believing that success will finally bring peace. But peace doesn't come from success, it comes from being, which was available all along, hidden beneath the constant doing. The teaching that being is the foundation for doing is crucial. It's not that you should never do anything, it's that your doing should come from being present rather than from running away from the present. You work because work is what's arising, and you're present for the work, not because you're trying to prove something or achieve some future state where you'll finally be okay. This transforms the quality of action. Doing from being is effortless in a certain way, not that it doesn't require effort, but that the effort is not driven by anxiety or compulsion. It's simply what's appropriate in this moment. And when the doing is done, you can stop, because you're not using activity to avoid the discomfort of just being. Consider your own life. How much of your doing is actually being? When you're working, are you present with the work, or are you thinking about the future result? When you're with loved ones, are you actually there, or are you mentally somewhere else? How much of your constant activity is actually avoidance of simple being? The patron's realization that all his doing was ultimately in service of being okay is profound. We work to make money to have security to be okay. We seek success to feel valuable to be okay. We help others to feel good about ourselves to be okay. All the doing is motivated by not being okay now, by believing you'll be okay later after you do enough. But the monk shows him you're already okay. You don't need to do anything to be okay. Being okay is your nature, always available, simply obscured by the constant doing that's motivated by not feeling okay. When the patron learns to be, his doing doesn't stop. He still runs his business, but now he does it from a place of already being okay, rather than from seeking to become okay through achievement. This transforms the quality of his life. This teaching is the heart of the Buddha's message about purpose. The purpose is not to do great things, it's to be fully present. And from that presence, appropriate action naturally arises. But being comes first. Being is the foundation. Doing without being is compulsive, exhausting, ultimately unsatisfying. Doing from being is natural, sustainable, fulfilling. What would it mean to make being your foundation? To stop using constant activity to avoid the simple presence of being alive? To discover that you're already okay, that you don't need to do anything to deserve existence? This is not a call to become passive, it's an invitation to discover that doing can arise from being rather than from seeking or striving, and when it does, both the doing and the being are transformed. Rest in this teaching. Right now, for just this moment, you don't have to do anything. You can simply be, present, aware, alive. And in this simple being, discover what you've been seeking through all your doing, the peace of being okay, right now, without having to achieve anything. Breathe, be, let doing rest for this moment. Discover the foundation that was always here. This is the purpose, not what you do, but what you are. Being itself, already complete, already okay, already home.
Part 5. The purpose is already fulfilled. The student's search for enlightenment. A student came to a Zen master and said, "I want to become enlightened. I want to find my true purpose. I want to wake up. What must I do?" The master looked at him and asked, "Are you enlightened right now?" "No," the student said. "That's why I'm here. I need to achieve enlightenment." "And where is this enlightenment you need to achieve?" the master asked. "I don't know.
Somewhere in the future, I suppose, after sufficient practice. The master smiled. So enlightenment is not here, not now. It's somewhere else, sometime later. Yes, exactly. I need to work toward it. And tell me, the master continued, are you aware right now? Is consciousness present? The student was confused by this obvious question. Of course I'm aware. I'm talking to you. So awareness is present right now. Yes. Not in the future, not after more practice, but right now? Yes, now. Then enlightenment is present, the master said simply. But I don't feel enlightened, the student protested. What do you think enlightenment feels like? The master asked. I don't know. Peaceful, wise, special, different from this. Ah, the master said. So you're imagining some special state that's different from what's present now, and you're seeking that imagined state in an imagined future, and you call this seeking spiritual practice. The student felt defensive, but also confused. Isn't that what practice is, working toward enlightenment? That's what most people think, and that's why most people never find what they seek. They're looking for something other than this, something in the future, something special. But what the Buddha discovered is not in the future. It's not something other than this. It's this seen clearly. This? The student looked around. But this is just ordinary. This is just me sitting here feeling confused and unenlightened. Yes, ordinary awareness, ordinary consciousness, ordinary being alive. This is what you've been seeking, but you've been taught to overlook it because it's not special enough, not in the future, not something you have to achieve. The purpose you're seeking is already fulfilled. You already are what you're seeking to become. You're already awake. You're aware right now. You're already home. Where else could you be? You're already complete. What could be added to awareness to make it more complete? But then why practice at all? The student asked, genuinely confused now. Not to become something you're not, but to see clearly what you already are. The practice is not acquisition, but recognition, not becoming, but uncovering. You don't practice to become aware. You're already aware. You practice to notice that awareness, to rest in it, to stop overlooking it while searching for something more impressive. The student sat with this. Something in it resonated, but his seeking mind resisted. So I'm already enlightened? This question itself is the problem. There's no you separate from awareness that is or isn't enlightened. There's just awareness happening right now. The you that wants to become enlightened is a thought arising in awareness. It's not separate from awareness, looking at awareness, trying to achieve awareness. It is awareness, mistakenly believing it's something else. The master continued, the purpose you're seeking is not something to achieve, it's something to recognize. You're like someone who's forgotten they're wealthy and spends their life seeking wealth. The wealth is already yours. You just don't recognize it because you're looking for something else, something more, something in the future. Over the following months, the student struggled with this teaching. His whole sense of spiritual life had been about becoming enlightened, achieving awakening, reaching some future state. The idea that purpose was already fulfilled, that nothing needed to be achieved, felt simultaneously liberating and threatening. But gradually, something shifted. He began to notice awareness itself, not as something he was trying to cultivate, but as what was already here, already present, always had been. He began to see that seeking enlightenment was just a thought arising in awareness, and that the awareness in which that thought arose was already what he'd been seeking. One day he approached the master and said, I think I understand. I was seeking awareness.
But awareness was already present. I was trying to become conscious through effort, but consciousness was already here. The seeker and the sought are the same thing. The master smiled deeply. Yes,
And what does this mean for purpose? The student thought carefully. If I'm already what I'm seeking to become, then the purpose is not to achieve something in the future. The purpose is already fulfilled. I already am aware. I already am conscious. I already am alive. There's nothing to achieve because there's nothing lacking. And yet, the Master added, this recognition doesn't mean you stop living, stop practicing, stop growing. It means you do these things from wholeness rather than from lack. You practice not to become aware, but because you are aware. You live not to fulfill some purpose, but because living is what awareness does when it takes human form. So the purpose, the student said slowly, is simply to recognize what already is, to see that I'm already home, already complete, already what I was seeking. Yes, the Master said, and this recognition is not a one-time event. It's a continuous practice of remembering what's true, because the mind constantly forgets and starts seeking again. The mind loves to create problems to solve, goals to achieve, purposes to fulfill. It's what minds do. The practice is gently noticing this pattern and returning to what's already here. Simple awareness, simple presence, simple being alive. Years later, this student became a teacher himself. When people would come to him seeking enlightenment, he would ask them, "Are you aware right now?" And when they said yes, he would say, "Then you've already found what you're seeking. Now the only question is, can you recognize this? Can you rest in the awareness that's already present? Can you stop overlooking what you already are while seeking something more special?" Some people would get it immediately, and their seeking would drop away. Others would struggle, their minds insisting there must be something more to achieve. But he would patiently point them back to the same simple truth. You are already what you're seeking. The purpose is already fulfilled. You just haven't noticed yet. This teaching represents perhaps the most radical aspect of the Buddha's answer about life's purpose. The purpose is not to achieve something in the future, but to recognize what's already true now. You are already aware. You are already conscious. You are already alive. This is not nothing. This is everything. The seeking mind finds this teaching frustrating because it offers nothing to achieve, nothing to become, no future state to work toward. But that's precisely the point. The seeking itself is the problem. As long as you believe fulfillment is somewhere other than here, you'll never find it, because here is the only place it exists. The student's journey is instructive. He started with the conventional understanding. Enlightenment is a future state to achieve through practice. The Master deconstructed this completely, showing him that awareness is already present, that what he's seeking is already here. But the teaching doesn't end with this recognition. As the Master says, this isn't a one-time realization that permanently solves everything. The mind will keep forgetting and starting to seek again. The practice becomes one of continuous remembering, continuous recognition of what's already true. This is why the Buddha spoke of awakening not as a permanent attainment, but as a practice, a way of being that must be continuously chosen. You don't become permanently enlightened in the sense of never again forgetting. You learn to recognize awareness more and more quickly when you've forgotten it, to return to presence more and more naturally when you've gotten lost in seeking. The purpose, then, is not something you achieve once and for all. It's something you recognize again and again, in this moment, in this breath, in this ordinary experience of being alive. The purpose is already fulfilled because you already are. You just keep forgetting and need to keep remembering. What if you stopped right now and asked yourself, am I aware? The answer is obviously yes. You're aware of these words, aware of your body, aware of your thoughts. This awareness is not something you achieved, it's not something you earned, it's simply what's present. This is what you've been seeking, not some special state, but this ordinary awareness that's always been here. The revolutionary insight is that this ordinary awareness is not ordinary at all. It's the miracle of consciousness, the mystery of existence, the simple fact that awareness is happening. We overlook it because we're seeking something more impressive, but what could be more impressive than consciousness itself? Rest in this teaching. Feel into the awareness that's present right now, not as something you're trying to cultivate or achieve, but as what's already here. You are aware. You are conscious. You exist. This is not a small thing. This is the fulfillment of purpose itself, not in the future, but now. The seeking can stop. The striving can end, not because you've achieved something, but because you've recognized what was always true. You are already home. You were never anywhere else. Breathe. Notice awareness. Rest in what already is. This is the purpose, already fulfilled, waiting only to be recognized. Part 6. Living from Purpose. The teacher of ordinary life. There was a renowned spiritual teacher that attracted students from all over the world. They came expecting profound teachings, secret practices, advanced meditations. What they found was a teacher who lived in remarkable simplicity, doing very ordinary things with extraordinary presence. One day, a group of new students arrived. They found the teacher washing dishes. "When will the teaching begin?" they asked eagerly. "It's happening right now," the teacher replied, continuing to wash each dish with careful attention. "But you're just washing dishes," one student said, disappointed. "Yes," the teacher agreed, "and if you can wash dishes with complete presence, then you understand everything the Buddha taught. If you can't, then no amount of profound philosophy will help you." The students didn't understand, but they stayed. They expected that eventually, after washing dishes and sweeping floors and preparing meals, they would get to the real teaching, the secret wisdom, the advanced practices. But weeks passed, and the teacher just lived, cooking, cleaning, sitting, walking, talking with people, doing very ordinary things with remarkable attention. There were no special teachings, no secret transmissions, no dramatic spiritual experiences. Finally, one frustrated student confronted the teacher. "We came here for enlightenment, for profound spiritual teachings. All you do is live an ordinary life. When will you teach us something important?" The teacher stopped what she was doing, mending a tear in her robe, and looked at the student with great kindness. "Everything I do is teaching. Every moment is the teaching, but you're waiting for something else, something more special, so you miss it. Let me ask you, what do you think enlightened life looks like?" The student thought, "I suppose floating on clouds, performing miracles, having profound mystical experiences, certainly not mending clothes and washing dishes."
The teacher smiled. "Ah, I see. You think awakening means becoming someone special who lives a special life. But the Buddha's awakening was the opposite. He discovered that the ordinary is sacred, that the simple is profound, that life itself, this basic existence, is the miracle. "Look," she said, holding up the torn robe. "This robe is torn. That's a fact. I could ignore it and let it get worse. I could be irritated that it's torn. I could philosophize about the impermanence symbolized by the tear. Or I could simply mend it, fully present with the thread and needle, caring for this robe that serves me. This is enlightened action, not special, not impressive, just appropriate and present." She resumed her mending as she spoke. "Most people spend their lives waiting for life to begin, waiting to feel ready, waiting for the right circumstances, waiting to achieve some purpose they imagine will finally make their life meaningful. Meanwhile, their actual life is happening, and they're missing it because they're waiting for something else. The Buddhist teaching about purpose is this: your life is already happening, right now, this moment. Not preparation for life, but life itself. And the purpose is not to achieve something impressive with this life, but to actually be present for it, to live it fully, completely, with awareness and care. When I wash dishes, I'm not thinking about the next thing I need to do. I'm washing dishes. The water, the soap, the plate, this receives my full attention. When I talk with you, I'm not thinking about my answer while you're speaking. I'm listening completely. When I sit, I'm not trying to achieve some special state. I'm sitting. This is enlightened life, not doing special things, but doing ordinary things with full presence. One student asked, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight. "Just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight. "Just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight. "Just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight. "Just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight, "just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it. True spiritual life," she continued, "is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life." Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight, "just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight, "just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight, "just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, evaluating the present, comparing themselves to others, wondering if they're living right. They're doing life while being mentally absent from it." True spiritual life, she continued, is not separate from ordinary life. It's ordinary life done with extraordinary presence. You eat, but you actually taste the food. You walk, but you actually feel the walking. You talk with someone, but you actually listen. You work, but you're actually present for the work. This is the purpose, to live your life instead of thinking about your life. Another student said, "But isn't this just living? What makes it spiritual?" "Exactly," the teacher said with delight, "just living. But how often do you actually do that? How often are you fully present with just living? Most people are living in their heads, thinking about..."
The teacher's emphasis on doing ordinary things with complete presence is the antidote. When you wash dishes with full attention, you're not waiting for life to begin, you're living. When you truly listen to someone, you're not enduring conversation until something more interesting happens, you're engaged with life. This presence transforms everything, not by making experiences more special, but by allowing you to actually experience them. Her point about helping others is crucial. Compassion and service naturally arise from presence. When you're truly aware, you see suffering and naturally respond. But when service becomes a purpose you must achieve to prove something, it becomes another form of ego, another way to feel important or meaningful. True compassion is simpler. You see someone needs help, you can help, so you do. No drama, no self-congratulation, no identity built around being a helper. The teaching that enlightened life is ordinary life lived with presence is liberating because it means you don't have to change your circumstances to live spiritually. You don't have to become a monk, move to a monastery, quit your job, leave your family. You can live enlightened life right where you are, doing what you're doing, simply by bringing presence to it. This doesn't mean circumstances don't matter, obviously. Some situations are more conducive to presence than others. The teacher lives simply, partly because simplicity supports presence. But the key is internal presence, not external circumstances. You can be present washing dishes in a monastery or in an apartment. You can be present with a meditation cushion or with a crying child. Consider your own life. How much of it do you actually experience versus think about? When you eat, do you taste the food? When you walk, do you feel the walking? When you're with someone, are you really there? The purpose is not to achieve something with your life, but to actually live your life, to be present for the miracle that awareness is happening, that experience is occurring, that you are alive. This is what the Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree, not something to achieve in the future, but the recognition that life is happening now, and being present for it is the purpose. Everything else is elaboration. Rest in this teaching. Whatever you're doing right now, even if it's just reading these words, can you do it with complete presence? Can you be fully here for this ordinary moment? This is the practice. This is the purpose. This is enlightened life, not special, just real, just present, just alive. Breathe, be here, live this moment fully. This is the purpose, already available, waiting only for your presence.
Part 7. The End of Seeking. The Exhausted Seeker. A woman had spent 20 years seeking enlightenment. She had studied with dozens of teachers, practiced countless techniques, attended hundreds of retreats. She had meditated for thousands of hours, read hundreds of books, tried every practice and path she encountered. And after 20 years, she was exhausted. No closer to enlightenment, no more peaceful, no clearer about her purpose. She felt like a failure, like she'd wasted her life chasing something she would never attain. In despair, she decided to quit. She was done seeking, done trying, done with the whole spiritual project. She would just live an ordinary life and accept that enlightenment wasn't for her. She stopped meditating. She stopped going to retreats. She stopped reading spiritual books. She just lived, went to work, cooked meals, took walks, did ordinary things. And something unexpected began to happen. Without the constant pressure of seeking, without the endless evaluation of whether she was making progress, without the chronic feeling of not yet being where she needed to be, a space opened up, a quietness, a sense of just being alive without needing it to lead anywhere. One day, she was walking in a park. She wasn't practicing walking meditation. She wasn't trying to be mindful. She was just walking. And suddenly, she noticed the trees. Really noticed them, not as objects to be mentally noted as part of a mindfulness practice, but just trees, being trees, perfect in their treeness, needing nothing added, asking nothing from her, except perhaps to be seen. And in that moment of simple seeing, something released.
She realized she'd spent 20 years trying to become something she already was, aware. All the seeking, all the practices, all the efforts, they had been motivated by the belief that she was not yet okay, not yet awake, not yet what she needed to be. But standing there, seeing the trees, she recognized awareness had been present all along. Every moment of her 20-year search, awareness had been there. The awareness that noticed she wasn't enlightened yet, the awareness that evaluated her progress, the awareness that tried different techniques. The seeker was what she'd been seeking. She sat down on a park bench, and for the first time in 20 years, she wasn't trying to be spiritual. She wasn't evaluating her state. She wasn't wondering if this was it. She was just sitting, being aware, being alive, and it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. She went back to one of her former teachers, the one who had seemed most genuine, most real. She told him what had happened. "I stopped seeking," she said. "I gave up, and in giving up, I found what I'd been seeking. Or rather, I recognized what was always there. What happened?" The teacher smiled with deep understanding. "You exhausted yourself. You tried every path, every practice, every technique, and eventually you had to face the truth that none of them could give you what you were seeking, because what you were seeking was always already present. The seeking itself was the obstacle." "But all those years," she said, tears in her eyes, "were they wasted?" "No," the teacher said gently. "They were necessary. Most people need to exhaust themselves seeking before they can stop. The mind needs to try everything before it can finally give up. You needed those 20 years to prove to yourself that seeking doesn't work, that no technique or practice or teacher could give you what you already have." "So seeking is necessary but also the problem?" she asked. "Seeking arises naturally. You feel something is missing, so you seek. This is understandable. But the seeking itself reinforces the feeling that something is missing. It says, I need to find something I don't yet have. And as long as that's your operating assumption, you can never find what you're looking for because you're looking from a position of lack." "The purpose," he continued, "is not in the future as something to achieve through seeking. The purpose is here, now, in simple awareness. But most people can't recognize this until they've exhausted themselves seeking. The seeking has to run its course, burn itself out." "So what now?" she asked. "What do I do?" The teacher laughed warmly. "Nothing. You're already doing it. You're already living. You're already aware. There's nothing to do except continue being present for your life, noticing when you slip back into seeking mode and gently returning to simple presence." "But I thought spiritual practice was important," she said. "Practice can be helpful," the teacher acknowledged, "but not practice as seeking, trying to get somewhere you're not. Practice as expression of what you already are. You meditate not to become aware, but because you are aware. You live ethically not to become a good person, but because kindness is what naturally arises from presence. You practice not to achieve purpose, but because you've recognized purpose is already fulfilled, and practice is one way that fulfillment expresses itself." The woman continued to practice after this realization, but with a completely different quality. She meditated not to get somewhere, but as a way of resting in awareness. She was kind not to earn spiritual points, but because unkindness no longer made sense. She helped others not to fulfill her purpose, but because helping was simply what arose naturally. When people would ask her about the purpose of life, she would say, "I spent 20 years seeking the purpose, and the seeking itself kept me from recognizing it. The purpose is so simple, so immediate, so obvious that we completely overlook it while searching for something more special. The purpose is simply to be aware, to be present, to be alive. Everything else elaborates on this basic truth." And she would add, "You might need to seek for a while. I did. Most people do. The seeking has to exhaust itself, but know that what you're seeking is not in the future, not in any particular experience or achievement. It's here, in the simple fact that you're aware right now. When you finally see this, the seeking can stop and life can begin. This story addresses a crucial aspect of the spiritual path that's often overlooked. Sometimes the seeking itself is the obstacle, and only by exhausting the seeking can you finally recognize what was always present.
The woman's 20 years weren't wasted, but they also didn't bring her what she sought. They were necessary for her to prove to herself that seeking doesn't work, that no external practice or teacher or technique could give her what she already had. This is a hard lesson, one that many people resist accepting. We want to believe that if we just find the right practice, the right teacher, the right method, we'll finally achieve what we're seeking. But what the Buddha discovered is that this entire approach is backwards. You're already aware. You're already conscious. You already are what you're seeking to become. The seeking reinforces the false belief that you're not. The moment in the park is significant. It happened when she wasn't trying, wasn't practicing, wasn't seeking. She was just walking and seeing trees. And in that simple, unelaborated moment, recognition happened. Not because she achieved something, but because for once she wasn't trying to achieve anything. This is the paradox. The purpose is fulfilled, but we miss it because we're seeking. When seeking exhausts itself and drops away, what's always been true becomes obvious. You are aware. This is not a small thing. This is everything. The teacher's explanation about practice is important. Practice can be valuable, but only when it comes from recognition of what already is, rather than from seeking what isn't yet. You meditate not to become aware, but because you are aware. This shift from doing practice to achieve something to doing practice as expression of recognition is everything. The woman's transformation wasn't about achieving something. It was about releasing the chronic seeking, the constant feeling of not yet being where she needed to be. When that released, what remained was simple presence, being alive, being aware, being here. And this was enough, had always been enough. Consider how much of your spiritual life is seeking. How much is based on the assumption that you're not yet okay, not yet enlightened, not yet what you need to be? And what would happen if that seeking could exhaust itself? What would remain? What remains is this: you are aware, you are conscious, you exist, you are alive. This is not preparation for something more important. This is it. The simple presence of awareness is what you've been seeking through all your practices, all your searching, all your efforts. The purpose is not to achieve awareness. You can't achieve what you already have. The purpose is to recognize awareness, to rest in it, to stop overlooking it while seeking something more impressive. And recognition doesn't come from more seeking. It comes from seeking exhausting itself, from finally giving up, from stopping long enough to notice what's already here. Rest in this teaching. Let seeking exhaust itself, not by forcing it to stop, that's just more seeking, but by seeing that it's not working, that it's never worked, that it can never work because it's based on a false premise. You already are what you're seeking. The purpose is already fulfilled. You're already home. The seeking is just preventing you from recognizing this. Breathe. Stop seeking even just for this moment. Notice what remains when seeking stops. This awareness, this presence, this simple being alive, this is what you've been seeking. It's here. It's always been here. You just couldn't see it while you were so busy looking elsewhere. The seeking can end, not in the future, but now. And when it does, purpose reveals itself, not as something to achieve, but as what you already are. Be still, be aware, be here. This is it.
This is the purpose, already fulfilled, waiting only to be recognized.
Part 8. The Universal Purpose. The question that includes everyone. A philosopher approached the Buddha and asked, "What is the purpose of life? Not just for monks or spiritual seekers, but for everyone. The merchant, the farmer, the parent, the ruler, the servant. What is the universal purpose that applies to all beings?" The Buddha considered this carefully. "You ask a profound question. Let me answer with a story. Imagine a person is struck by an arrow," the Buddha began. "They are in pain, suffering from the wound. Now, their friend wants to help them. Should the friend first investigate who shot the arrow, what type of wood it was made from, what kind of feathers were used, what was the archer's motivation? No, the philosopher said. The friend should remove the arrow and treat the wound immediately." Exactly, the Buddha said. The purpose, the immediate, urgent purpose, is to end suffering. Not to philosophize about suffering, not to understand every detail of its origin, but to actually address it, to end it. "For all beings?" the philosopher asked. "For all beings," the Buddha confirmed. The merchant conducting business, the farmer working the land, the parent raising children, the ruler governing people, the servant performing tasks, all are touched by suffering. All experience pain, loss, disappointment, fear, and all have the capacity to end suffering by understanding its causes: craving, aversion, ignorance. It involves developing wisdom, compassion, and presence. It involves seeing clearly and living accordingly. "But their lives are so different," the philosopher protested. "Surely the purpose of a king is different from the purpose of a farmer." "The activities are different," the Buddha agreed. "The circumstances are different, but the fundamental purpose, to end suffering, is the same. The king ends suffering by governing wisely and compassionately. The farmer ends suffering by working the land mindfully and sharing the harvest. The parent ends suffering by raising children with wisdom and love. The form is different, but the purpose is one." "And what of those who cause suffering? The cruel, the violent, the selfish? They too are suffering," the Buddha said. "No one causes harm from a place of genuine peace and happiness. Those who hurt others are themselves in pain, though they may not recognize it. Their purpose too is to end suffering, starting with their own, which is the root of the suffering they inflict on others." The philosopher sat with this. "So you're saying the purpose of life, for everyone, in every circumstance, is to end suffering?" "Yes," the Buddha said, "but understand what this means. It's not just about reducing your own pain or making yourself comfortable. True ending of suffering involves understanding its causes: craving, aversion, ignorance. It involves developing wisdom, compassion, and presence. It involves seeing clearly and living accordingly." "And this is possible for everyone?" the philosopher asked. "Every being has awareness. Every being has the capacity for wisdom and compassion. Every being can learn to be present rather than lost in craving and aversion. So yes, the purpose is accessible to all, not just spiritual adepts, but every person, regardless of their station or circumstances." "The merchant," the Buddha continued, "can conduct business with integrity and presence, neither grasping at profit nor acting from greed. This reduces suffering, his own and those he trades with. The farmer can work the land with care and awareness, neither exploiting the earth nor working from resentment. This too reduces suffering. The parent can raise children with wisdom rather than projecting their own unmet needs onto the children. The ruler can govern from compassion rather than from ego.
all of these people in their different circumstances are working with the same fundamental purpose, to reduce suffering by acting from wisdom and presence rather than from craving and confusion. The external forms differ, but the internal practice is the same. The philosopher thought about this. But what about happiness, joy, love? Is the purpose only about reducing suffering or also about cultivating positive experiences? A good question, the Buddha said. When suffering ends, when craving ceases, when aversion releases, when confusion clears, what remains is naturally peaceful and content. You don't have to create happiness as something separate. Happiness is what's present when you stop creating suffering. Furthermore, when you're present and aware, when you're not caught in craving and aversion, compassion arises naturally. Love arises naturally. Joy arises naturally. These are not things you must manufacture. They're the natural expression of awareness when it's not obscured by suffering. So, the philosopher said slowly, the purpose of life for everyone, in every circumstance, is to end suffering by seeing its causes and living accordingly. And in doing so, positive qualities naturally arise. Yes, the Buddha confirmed, and this is truly universal. A child can practice it at their level of understanding. An elder can practice it with accumulated wisdom. A rich person can practice it in luxury. A poor person can practice it in simplicity. The external circumstances vary infinitely, but the fundamental purpose, to be present, to act from wisdom rather than from craving, to reduce suffering, this is the same for all. The philosopher bowed deeply. This is indeed a universal purpose. Thank you. As the philosopher left, one of the Buddha's disciples asked, Master, is this really the complete answer? Is there nothing more to life's purpose than ending suffering? The Buddha smiled. When suffering ends, you discover what you truly are, awareness itself, consciousness itself, the knowing that knows all experience. This is not small. This is not limited. This is vast beyond measure. So yes, the purpose is to end suffering, and in ending suffering, you discover infinity. This teaching presents the Buddha's answer in its most universal form. The purpose of life for all beings in all circumstances is to end suffering. This is not a depressing or limited purpose. It's actually the most liberating purpose imaginable. The story of the arrow makes this vivid. You're suffering. Everyone is to some degree. The urgent matter is not to philosophize about suffering, but to address it, to understand its causes and live in a way that reduces those causes.
The universality is crucial. The Buddha's teaching is not just for monks or spiritual seekers. It applies to everyone, everywhere, in every circumstance. The merchant, the parent, the ruler, the servant, all can reduce suffering by bringing awareness and compassion to their activities. The forms differ, but the fundamental purpose is one. This teaching also addresses a common misconception that Buddhism is only about reducing suffering, only about the negative. But as the Buddha explains, when suffering ends through wisdom and presence, what remains is naturally positive, peaceful, content, joyful, loving. You don't have to create these qualities separately. They're what consciousness naturally expresses when not obscured by craving and confusion. The inclusivity of this purpose is also important. Every being, regardless of circumstances or abilities, can work with this purpose at their level. A child reduces suffering by learning to be kind rather than cruel. An adult reduces suffering by acting from wisdom rather than reactivity. An elder reduces suffering by sharing accumulated understanding. Rich or poor, educated or not, anyone can engage with this purpose. Even those who cause harm are included. They're suffering too, and their purpose is the same, though they're currently far from recognizing it. This perspective cultivates compassion even for those who act harmfully, seeing that they act from confusion and pain rather than from genuine well-being. The final exchange is profound. When suffering ends, you discover what you truly are. The purpose is not small or limited. Ending suffering reveals the vast, boundless nature of awareness itself. So the purpose seems simple: end suffering, but it opens into infinity. This is the Buddha's answer that applies to everyone. You are suffering. Suffering can end. There is a path to ending it. Walk that path by understanding suffering's causes and living with awareness and compassion. This is the purpose, universal, accessible, liberating. Consider your own life. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can engage with this purpose. You can notice when you're acting from craving or aversion and choose instead to act from wisdom and presence. You can reduce suffering, your own and others, by bringing awareness to your thoughts, words, and actions. This is available now, not in some future when you're more advanced or circumstances are better. The merchant doesn't need to become a monk to engage with purpose. The parent doesn't need to abandon family to live spiritually. Everyone, right where they are, can work with this universal purpose: to see clearly, to act wisely, to reduce suffering, to be present. And in doing so, you discover that suffering and the end of suffering are not two separate things. They're two sides of the same understanding. When you see clearly how suffering arises, in that very seeing, it begins to cease. When you act from presence rather than craving, in that very action you reduce suffering. The path and the goal are one. Rest in this universal purpose. Whatever your circumstances, whatever your role, you can engage with it now. Notice suffering when it arises, the subtle tension, the wanting things to be different, the resistance to what is. Notice the causes, the craving, the aversion, the confusion, and in that noticing, suffering already begins to release. This is the purpose, for you, for everyone, for all beings. Universal, accessible, immediate. Not in the future, but now. Not somewhere else, but here. Not for special people, but for everyone. End suffering by seeing its causes. Be present. Act from wisdom. This is the purpose. This is the path. This is what the Buddha discovered and taught for 45 years. Simple, profound, universal, liberating. Breathe. Notice. Be present. Reduce suffering through awareness. This is the purpose, available now, in this very moment.
Part 9. Coming Home. The Journey's End. After years of wandering, seeking, practicing, and finally understanding, a monk was preparing to leave his teacher and return to the world. "Teacher," he said, "I understand now that the purpose was never to achieve something special, never to become someone important, never to fulfill some grand destiny. The purpose is simply to be present, to reduce suffering, to live with awareness. But I have one final question." "Ask," the teacher said. "After all this seeking, all this practice, all this understanding, where have I arrived? What have I achieved?" The teacher smiled deeply. "Where are you right now?" The monk looked around. "I'm here, in this room, with you. And where else could you be?" "Nowhere else. I can only ever be here." "And have you ever been anywhere other than here?" The monk thought about this. "In my mind, I've been in the past and the future, in memories and fantasies and plans. But actually, no, I've always been here. Even when I thought I was somewhere else, I was here thinking about somewhere else." "So," the teacher asked gently, "where has your journey taken you?" The monk laughed with sudden recognition. "Nowhere. I've been here the whole time. All the seeking, all the traveling, all the practices, and I never left here. I never could leave here." "Yes," the teacher said, "you've taken the journey that goes nowhere, the search that discovers you were never lost, the practice that reveals you were always home." That's the great cosmic joke, isn't it? We seek for years, travel thousands of miles, study with dozens of teachers, practice countless hours, all to discover we were already where we were trying to get to. We were already what we were trying to become. We were already home. And yet, the teacher added, the journey was necessary. Without it, you wouldn't recognize home when you're in it. You would take it for granted, overlook it, think it must be somewhere else. The journey teaches you to recognize and appreciate what was always present. So was it all futile? The monk asked. All those years? Was it futile for a child to learn to walk? The capacity to walk was always there, waiting to be discovered and developed. Your journey was similar. The capacity for presence, for awareness, for peace was always there. The journey was learning to recognize and embody it. And now? The monk asked. Now you return to the world, the teacher said. But you return knowing you never left home, that wherever you go, home comes with you. Because home is not a place. Home is awareness itself. And awareness is always present, always here. You will work, interact with people, face challenges. You will experience joy and sorrow, success and failure, comfort and difficulty. But through it all, you'll know this is home. This moment, whatever it contains, is home. You are already where you were seeking to arrive. The monk bowed deeply. Thank you, teacher, for showing me that I was already home, even when I didn't know it. The teacher placed his hand on the monk's head. Go now, live fully, be present, and remember, the purpose is not out there waiting to be achieved. The purpose is here, in this breath, in this awareness, in this simple being alive. You have found what you were seeking by recognizing it was never lost. The monk left the monastery the next day. As he walked down the mountain path, he felt something he'd never felt before, a complete sense of having arrived, not because he'd reached the bottom of the mountain, but because every step was arrival, every breath was completion, every moment was home. He would live many more years, doing many things. He would experience the full range of human experience. But through it all, he carried this recognition. Home is here. Purpose is fulfilled. The seeking is over, because what was sought was found to be what was doing the seeking. Years later, teaching students of his own, he would say, the purpose of life is to wake up to the truth that you're already home. Not to get somewhere else, not to become someone else, but to recognize what and where you already are. This recognition is enlightenment. This recognition is the end of suffering. This recognition is the fulfillment of purpose. And then, he would add with a smile, life continues. You still eat and sleep and work and love. But now you're not seeking through these activities. You're not trying to get somewhere else. You're simply living, fully present, knowing that every moment is home. Every moment is complete. Every moment is the purpose fulfilled. This final teaching completes the circle, bringing us back to where we began, here, now, already home. The monk's recognition that he never left and never could leave here is the ultimate realization. All seeking is fundamentally looking for home, trying to arrive, trying to be okay. But home is not a destination, it's what you already are.
The teacher's point about the journey being necessary despite going nowhere is important. We can't just tell someone you're already home and expect them to get it. They need to seek, to practice, to exhaust themselves searching before they can recognize what was always present. The journey has value not in arriving somewhere else, but in developing the capacity to recognize where you already are. This parallels the Buddha's own story. He sought for 6 years, tried everything, exhausted himself, and then recognized that what he sought was present all along. The 6 years weren't wasted. They were necessary for him to be able to recognize and appreciate the truth when it revealed itself. The monk's return to the world is significant. Recognizing that you're already home doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It means living life fully, doing what needs to be done, but without the chronic seeking, the constant dissatisfaction, the feeling of not yet being where you need to be. You work, you love, you face challenges, but from a place of already being complete, rather than from seeking to become complete through these activities. This is what the Buddha meant by the end of suffering, not the end of life's difficulties, but the end of the second arrow, the mental suffering we add to difficulties. When you know you're already home, difficulty is still difficult, but you don't add the suffering of, "this shouldn't be happening," or "I should be somewhere else." The monk's final teaching as a teacher himself encapsulates everything. The purpose is to wake up to being already home, and then to live from that recognition. Not to achieve something in the future, but to recognize what's true now. And this recognition doesn't end life or stop activity, it simply removes the burden of seeking, the chronic dissatisfaction, the feeling of incompleteness. This is the ultimate answer to life's purpose that the Buddha discovered. You are already home. You are already complete. You are already what you're seeking to become. The purpose is simply to recognize this and to live from this recognition.
Everything we've explored in this journey, the critique of achievement-based purpose, the Buddha's discovery under the tree, the paradox of purposelessness, being versus doing, the exhaustion of seeking, the universal purpose of ending suffering, all of it points to this simple truth. You are already home. The seeking can end. The purpose is fulfilled, not in the future, but now. Consider, what would change if you truly knew you were already home? If you recognized that this moment, whatever it contains, is already complete, that you don't need to get somewhere else, become someone else, achieve something else to finally be okay. Everything would change. Not your external circumstances necessarily, but your relationship to them. You could live fully, work effectively, love deeply, but without the chronic seeking, without the constant sense of not yet being where you need to be. You would be here, actually here for your life. This is the real purpose that 99% miss. They think purpose is somewhere else, something to achieve, a destination to arrive at. But the Buddha's answer is radically different. Purpose is recognizing you're already home, already complete, already what you're seeking, and then living from that recognition. The journey goes nowhere. The search discovers you were never lost. The practice reveals you were always home. And in this recognition, suffering ends, not because circumstances become perfect, but because you stop being at war with what is. You stop seeking elsewhere for what's here. You stop becoming and simply be. This is the purpose. This is the answer. This is what the Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago, and what remains true in this moment now. You are home. You are complete. You are already what you seek. The purpose is fulfilled. The seeking can end. Life can begin. Not some future life, but this life, here,
now, already happening. Rest in this knowing. Breathe in the recognition of already being home. Let seeking exhaust itself in the presence of this truth. You don't need to get anywhere. You're already here. You've always been here. You could never be anywhere else. This is it. This is home. This is purpose fulfilled. Welcome home. You never left.
Part 10. Purpose in Relationships. The couple who forgot each other. There was a couple who had been married for 30 years. In the beginning, they had been deeply in love, attentive to each other, present with each other. But over the decades, something had changed. They lived together, shared a home, raised children together, but they had stopped truly seeing each other. The husband would come home from work and the wife would be there, but he wouldn't really see her. He would see wife, a role, a function, someone who was supposed to be there. She would look at him and see husband, provider, partner in maintaining the household, but not the actual person. They were going through the motions of relationship, but the relationship itself, the actual connection between two conscious beings, had disappeared. They were like two actors playing the roles of married couple, but the life had gone out of it. One day, the wife fell seriously ill. She was hospitalized, and for the first time in years, the husband felt real fear. The possibility of losing her cracked through the routine, the taking for granted, the assumption that she would always be there. He sat by her hospital bed, and for the first time in years, he actually looked at her, not at wife, not at the role, but at this specific person, this woman with her particular way of breathing, her specific face, her unique existence. And he realized with shock that he had forgotten her, not consciously, but in the way we forget what's always present. He had stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a fixture of his life. When she recovered and came home, something had shifted in him. He began practicing presence with her. When she spoke, he actually listened instead of already planning his response. When they ate dinner together, he looked at her, saw her, was actually there with her instead of being lost in his own thoughts. The wife noticed this change and was puzzled by it at first, but gradually she too began to wake up. She started actually seeing him, not just husband, but this specific person with his particular quirks, his unique way of being, his singular existence. They fell in love again, not with the roles they played, but with the actual persons they were. And they realized they had wasted years sleepwalking through their relationship, taking each other for granted, assuming presence when there was only proximity. One evening, as they sat together in comfortable silence, the husband said, "I've been thinking about purpose. For years, I thought the purpose of our marriage was to build a life together, the house, the children, the security. But I realize now that was just the form. The actual purpose was to be present with each other, to truly see each other, to not take each other for granted." The wife nodded. "We built the life, but we weren't present for it. We achieved all the external things we thought would make us happy, but we forgot the only thing that actually creates happiness, being truly here with each other." "It's strange," the husband continued. "Society tells you the purpose of relationship is to find the right person, get married, build a life, raise children, grow old together. Those are things that might happen, but they're not the purpose. The purpose is to practice presence with another being, to see them, hear them, be with them without the filter of what you want from them or what role they play in your life. This is love, not the emotion, but the practice of presence with another being, and it's available in every moment with every person if you choose it." Rest in this teaching. Consider who in your life you might be taking for granted, treating as a role rather than seeing as a person, and know that presence is always available. You can choose it now, in your next interaction, in every moment of connection. The purpose in relationship is simple. Be present. See the person. Don't let them disappear into routine or assumption. This moment of connection is your life happening. Don't miss it. The parent's realization. A father had worked his entire life to provide for his children. He worked long hours, saved diligently, planned carefully for their future. He believed this was his purpose as a parent, to give them every opportunity, to secure their future, to provide material comfort. His children grew up in material abundance, but with an emotionally absent father. He was always working, always tired, always thinking about the next thing that needed to be done to secure their future. When he was physically present, he was mentally elsewhere, planning, worrying, calculating. When his youngest child graduated from college, the father felt a sense of accomplishment. He had done it, gotten all 3 children through university without debt, set them up for success. His purpose had been fulfilled. But at the graduation party, his youngest son approached him with an unusual expression, not gratitude, but something closer to sadness. "Dad," he said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," the father replied, expecting thanks or perhaps a question about career advice. "Do you know me?" the son asked. The father was confused. "What do you mean? Of course I know you. You're my son." "No," the son said gently. "Do you actually know me? What I care about? What I dream about? What scares me? What brings me joy? Have you ever really asked?" The father opened his mouth to respond, but realized he couldn't answer. He knew the external facts, his son's major, his grades, his career plans, but the actual person, the inner life, the unique being his son was, that was a stranger to him. "I don't blame you. You've worked so hard for us. You've given us so much. But Dad, I would trade all of it, the house, the education, the opportunities, for having had a father who was actually present, who listened when I spoke, who saw me as a person, not as a future to be secured." The father felt something crack open in his chest. He had spent 25 years working for his children's future while missing their present. He had provided everything except himself. "I'm so sorry," he said, tears in his eyes. I thought providing for you was love. I thought securing your future was my purpose." "It was love, but it was incomplete. We needed you, not just your money. We needed your presence, not just your provision." That conversation changed the father's life. He didn't quit working, he still had responsibilities, but he began to prioritize presence over provision. He started having real conversations with his children, learning who they actually were. He practiced listening without thinking about what advice to give. He worked on being there, really there, when he was with them. It was awkward at first. Years of emotional absence couldn't be instantly reversed, but gradually, real relationships began to form, not based on his providing and their receiving, but on genuine connection, on mutual presence, on actually knowing each other. One day, years later, his oldest daughter said to him, "You know, Dad, you're different now. You're actually here when you're with us. It's like we finally have a father, not just a provider." The father thought about this. "I spent most of your lives thinking my purpose was to give you things, to secure your future. But I realize now that was my excuse for not being present. It was easier to work than to actually be with you, to know you, to let me know you. I was hiding behind provision." "And now?" she asked. "Now I know the purpose of being a parent isn't to secure your future. It's to be present for your present, to see you, to know you, to be with you, to show up not just physically, but actually. Everything else is secondary." He paused, then added sadly, "I can't get back those years I missed. I can't redo your childhoods with presence, but I can be present now. That's all any of us can ever do." His daughter hugged him. "Being present now is enough. It's everything." The father became known among his friends for his unusual approach to parenting adult children.
While others worried about their children's careers, their marriages, their life choices, he focused on simple presence. He called not to give advice, but to listen. He visited not to fix things, but to be there. He learned to let his children be who they were instead of who he thought they should be. When other parents would ask his secret, he would say, "I wasted years trying to secure my children's future while missing their present. Don't make my mistake. Your children don't need you to have all the answers or provide everything or fix all their problems. They need you to be present, to see them, to know them, to let them know you. That's the purpose, not provision, but presence." This story addresses one of the most common mistakes in understanding purpose, believing that love and care are demonstrated through provision, through doing things for others, rather than through presence, through being with them. The father's mistake is widespread, especially among parents, but also in all caregiving relationships. We think we show love by working hard, providing, fixing, doing. But often what people need most is not what we do for them, but our actual presence with them. The son's question, "Do you know me?" is haunting. How many people live entire lives in proximity to others without actually knowing them? How many relationships are conducted through roles and routines rather than through genuine presence and connection? The father had convinced himself that his purpose was provision, but that was partly an excuse. Provision gave him something concrete to do, something measurable, something that let him avoid the vulnerability of actually being present, of actually connecting, of actually knowing and being known. True presence is vulnerable. It requires showing up not just with your competence and capability, but with your full humanity. It means being there even when you can't fix anything, even when you don't have answers, even when all you have to offer is your attention. Consider your own relationships, especially with those you care for. Are you hiding behind doing things for them? Are you so busy managing, providing, fixing that you're not actually present with them? Can you see them, know them, let them know you? The purpose in any caring relationship is not to control outcomes or secure futures. It's to be present, to see and know the other person, to offer not just your competence, but your attention, your listening, your actual self. This doesn't mean you don't work, don't provide, don't help practically, but these things flow from presence rather than replacing it. You do for others because you're present with them and see what's needed, not as a substitute for presence. The father's regret is real. He can't redo his children's childhoods, but his recognition that he can be present now is important. It's never too late to choose presence. Whatever relationship, whatever moment, you can choose to be here, to see, to know, to connect. Rest in this teaching. Consider who in your life needs not your advice or provision or fixing, but your presence, and know that presence is always available. You can offer it now, in this next interaction, in every moment of connection. The purpose is not to do everything perfectly. It's to be present imperfectly, to show up, to listen, to see, to care. This is love in action. This is purpose fulfilled.
Part 11. Purpose in Work. The Craftsman's Question. A master craftsman who made furniture was renowned throughout the region. His pieces were beautiful, functional, perfectly made. People would travel from far away to commission his work. But despite his success, he felt something was missing. He would work long hours creating piece after piece, but it all felt somehow hollow. He couldn't name what was wrong. He was good at what he did. People valued his work. He made a good living. Yet there was an emptiness. One day, a monk visited his workshop. The craftsman, hoping for insight, asked, "Holy One, I am skilled at my craft. I work hard. I make beautiful things that bring joy to others. Why do I feel empty?"
The monk watched the craftsman work for a while, then asked, "When you make a chair, why do you make it?" The craftsman was puzzled by the question. To sell it? To make a living? To use my skills? And when you're actually working, when your hands are on the wood, when you're measuring and cutting and joining, where is your mind? The craftsman thought about this honestly, usually thinking about the next piece, or worried about making a mistake, or calculating whether I'll finish on time, or thinking about problems at home. Rarely actually whiff what I'm doing. There is your answer, the monk said. You spend your days making things, but you're never actually present for the making. You're always somewhere else, in the future, in your worries, in your calculations. The work is just something to get through so you can, what? Get to the next thing you won't be present for? The craftsman felt this truth land heavily. So I should, what? Quit my work and become a monk? No, the monk said. You should become present for your work. Don't make furniture to make money or use your skills or achieve something. Make furniture because that's what's happening right now, and you can be fully present for it. The wood in your hands, the grain under your fingers, the precise angle of the cut. This is your life happening. Don't miss it. But I have to think about the future, the craftsman protested. I have to plan, calculate, make a living. There's a time for planning, the monk agreed. But when you're planning, just plan. Be fully present with planning. And when you're working with the wood, just work. Be fully present with the wood. Don't do one thing while being mentally somewhere else. The monk continued, You asked about purpose. Most people think the purpose of work is to achieve something, to make money, gain status, create a product. But these are just results. The actual purpose is simpler, to be fully present for what you're doing. When you make a chair with complete presence, the making itself is purposeful. It needs no justification beyond itself. So the purpose is just being present while working? Being present is the purpose, the monk clarified, not as a means to some other end, but as an end in itself. You are alive, you are aware, you have this moment of experience, the wood, the tools, the creating. To be fully present for this is to fulfill purpose. Everything else is mental overlay. After the monk left, the craftsman sat with this teaching. The next day, he tried an experiment. He would make a chair, but instead of thinking about selling it or finishing on time or any future result, he would simply be present with each moment of the making. It was harder than he expected. His mind kept wanting to jump ahead, to calculate, to worry. But each time he noticed this, he gently returned to the present, the feeling of the wood, the sound of the saw, the precise placement of each joint. Hours passed like minutes. When the chair was done, he looked at it and felt something different than his usual satisfaction at completion. This chair was alive somehow. It had a quality his other pieces didn't have. Not technically better, but imbued with something. Presence, attention, care. A customer came to pick it up and said, "This is different from your usual work. I can't quite say how, but there's something special about it." The craftsman knew what it was. This chair had been made with presence. Every moment of its creation, he had been there. It wasn't just a product of his skill. It was an expression of awareness, of being fully present for life happening. He began making all his pieces this way, not for some result, but as a practice of presence. And paradoxically, his work improved dramatically. More importantly, the emptiness vanished. He was no longer just going through the motions to get to some future payoff. He was actually living his life, moment by moment, fully engaged with what he was doing. Years later, when apprentices would come to study with him, he would teach them technique, but he would emphasize presence. You can learn the technical skills anywhere, But learning to be present while you work, this is the real craft. This is what transforms work from something you do to get somewhere else into something meaningful in itself. The purpose of your work, he would teach, is not to become a master craftsman or make beautiful things or earn a living, though these may happen. The purpose is to be fully present for the work. When you sand wood, just sand, feel every stroke, be completely there. When you're measuring, just measure, give it your full attention. This presence is the purpose. Everything else is mental overlay. And he would add, most people spend their lives doing things to get to something else. They work to make money, to retire, to finally live. But life is not later. Life is now. If you're not present for your work, you're missing your actual life. Don't wait for retirement to start living. Live now, in this work, in this moment of existence. This teaching addresses the widespread confusion about the purpose of work. We think work's purpose is external, to make money, achieve success, create something, contribute to society. These may be results, but they're not the purpose. The purpose is to be present for the work itself. The craftsman's emptiness despite success is common. Many people who achieve professional success still feel hollow because they were never actually present for their work. They were always using it as a means to some other end, always somewhere else mentally while going through the motions. The monk's teaching is radical in our culture. The purpose of work is not to achieve, but to be present, not to get somewhere else, but to be fully here with what you're doing. This transforms work from something you endure to get to real life into an expression of life itself. The craftsman's experiment revealed something important. Work done with presence is qualitatively different, not just better in outcome, but different in essence. It carries the presence it was made with. People can feel this even if they can't articulate it. Consider your own work. How often are you actually present for it? Or are you always using it as a means to some future end? Working to finish so you can, what? Get to the next thing you won't be present for? The purpose is not what your work achieves. The purpose is being present for the work. This transforms everything. Suddenly work is not something to get through, but something to be engaged with. Not a means to life, but life itself. This doesn't mean you won't care about results, but the results flow from presence rather than driving it. You do quality work not to achieve something, because quality work is what naturally emerges from complete attention. Rest in this teaching. Whatever work you do, paid or unpaid, physical or mental, simple or complex, it can be a practice of presence. Not work to achieve purpose, but work as purpose. Not doing to get somewhere, but being fully present with doing. This is available now. In your next task, can you be completely present? Can you let go of worrying about results and just be there with the activity itself? Can you feel the purpose in the doing rather than in what the doing achieves? Work is not separate from spiritual life. Work done with presence is spiritual practice. Every task is an opportunity to be fully alive, fully present, fully engaged with this moment of existence. The purpose is here, in this work, in this moment, in this complete attention to what's happening now.
The teacher who changed nothing. In a school, there was a teacher who was beloved by students but puzzling to administrators. She didn't use the latest teaching methods. She didn't focus obsessively on test scores. She didn't follow the trendy educational theories. What she did was simple. She showed up every day and was completely present with her students. When a student spoke, she listened, not to evaluate or correct, but to actually hear. When she taught a lesson, she was fully engaged with the teaching, not thinking about the next class or her problems at home. When students struggled, she was there, not necessarily with the perfect intervention, but with attention, patience, presence. An administrator called her in one day. "Your test scores are average. Your methods are old-fashioned. What exactly is your contribution here?" The teacher thought about this. "I don't think I'm trying to contribute something. I'm just present with my students. I see them, listen to them, be with them. As for the work itself, the teaching, I try to do it with complete attention." "But what's your purpose?" the administrator pressed. "What are you trying to achieve?" "I'm not trying to achieve anything," the teacher said simply. "I'm teaching. That's what I do. When I'm teaching math, I'm teaching math, fully present with the equations, with the concepts, with the student's understanding. I'm not teaching to achieve high test scores or advance my career or change the world. I'm just teaching because that's what's happening right now." The administrator shook his head, frustrated. "But surely you want your students to succeed, to learn, to achieve." "Of course I want them to learn," the teacher said. "But I've noticed something over the years. Students learn better from teachers who are present with them than from teachers who are obsessed with achievement. When I'm fully present, actually seeing my students, actually engaged with the material, actually here in the classroom, rather than lost in worries or ambitions, the learning happens naturally." "You can't measure presence on a test," the administrator said dismissively. "No," the teacher agreed, "but you can feel it in a room, and students respond to it more than any technique or method." Years later, long after graduation, former students would return to visit this teacher. They would tell her how much her class had meant to them. When she would ask what specifically had helped, they would struggle to articulate it. "It wasn't any particular lesson or technique," one former student said. "It was, you were actually there. Most teachers were going through the motions, but you were present. We felt seen, heard, valued. And that made us want to learn, not because we were trying to achieve something, but because learning with someone who's actually present is alive somehow." Another student said, "I don't remember much of the specific content you taught, but I remember the feeling of being in your class, that someone was actually paying attention, actually present. That taught me something more valuable than any curriculum content, what it means to show up fully for what you're doing." The teacher never became famous. She never published revolutionary teaching methods or received prestigious awards. Her test scores remained average, but she touched hundreds of lives simply by being present, by actually showing up day after day for the work and for the people. Near retirement, a colleague asked her, "Looking back on your career, do you think you accomplished your purpose?" The teacher smiled. "I never had a purpose to accomplish. I just taught. Day after day, year after year, I showed up and was present with my students and my work. If that served them, I'm glad. But I wasn't doing it to serve some larger purpose. I was doing it because I was a teacher, and that's what teachers do." "But didn't you want to make a difference? Didn't you want to change lives?" "Wanting to change lives would have made me focus on results rather than on presence, and presence is what actually allows genuine influence. When you're trying to change someone, you're not really with them, you're with your agenda for them. When you're simply present with them without an agenda, that's when real learning happens." She paused, then added, "The purpose was never to accomplish something through my teaching. The purpose was simply to be present while teaching. Teaching with complete presence, that's meaningful in itself, irregardless of measurable outcomes." After she retired, the school put a plaque in her honor. It didn't list achievements or accolades. It simply said she was present, and in her presence, students learned what matters most. This story continues the teaching about work, showing that even in systems focused on achievement and measurement, presence is what truly matters and what actually creates genuine influence. The teacher's failure by conventional metrics, average test scores, no innovative methods, no impressive achievements, contrasts with her profound impact on students' lives. This illustrates the Buddha's teaching that purpose is not about measurable achievement, but about quality of presence.
Her response to the administrator is key. She's not trying to achieve anything beyond doing her work with presence. She teaches because she's a teacher, and she does it with complete attention. This is enough. This is everything. The former students' memories are telling. They don't remember specific lessons, but they remember being seen, being present with someone who is actually present. That taught them something more valuable than content. It taught them what it means to be fully engaged with life. The colleague's question about wanting to make a difference addresses a common trap in service-oriented work. When you're focused on outcomes and achievements, you're often more focused on your impact than on the people themselves. True service comes from presence, not from agenda. Consider any work involving other people: teaching, healthcare, customer service, parenting, friendship. Are you focused on outcomes and achievements or on presence? Are you actually with the people, or are you busy trying to change them, improve them, get them to some outcome you've decided is important? The purpose in any people-facing work is not to achieve specific results with them, it's to be present with them. And paradoxically, presence is what enables genuine influence and positive change. But that change is a side effect, not the goal. Rest in this teaching. If your work involves others, can you let go of your agenda for them and simply be present? Can you listen without already planning your response? Can you see without already judging or categorizing? Can you be there without trying to fix or change or improve? Presence is the purpose. Everything else flows from it. The teacher changed nothing by trying to change things. She simply showed up fully, day after day, and in that presence, transformation naturally occurred.
Part 12. The Middle Way. The Ascetic and the Musician. Before the Buddha's awakening, when he was still Siddhartha the seeker, he practiced extreme asceticism. He believed that enlightenment required complete denial of the body, total renunciation of pleasure, absolute discipline and self-mortification. He ate so little he was near death. He sat in painful positions for hours. He subjected his body to every kind of hardship, believing that through this extreme practice he would achieve his purpose, liberation from suffering. But after 6 years of this, he was no closer to awakening. He was just exhausted, sick, close to death. The extreme path wasn't working. One day, as he sat weak and depleted under a tree, he heard a boat passing on the nearby river. A teacher was instructing a student in playing the veena, a stringed instrument. "If you tune the string too tight," the teacher said, "it will break. If you tune it too loose, it won't play. The string must be tuned neither too tight nor too loose, but just right." Siddhartha heard these words and suddenly understood. He had been living in extremes. First, the extreme of luxury and pleasure in his palace, then the extreme of asceticism and denial. Both extremes missed the point. The middle way, neither too tight nor too loose, that was the path. He accepted food from a village girl, ending his extreme fast. He stopped torturing his body. He found a middle path, taking care of the body without being enslaved by pleasure, practicing with discipline but not with self-destruction. And it was from this middle way that awakening came, not from extreme indulgence, not from extreme denial, but from balance. Years later, teaching his disciples, the Buddha would often return to this theme. The purpose is not found in extremes, it's found in the middle way. One student asked, "Master, what exactly is the middle way? How do we know if we're too tight or too loose?" The Buddha smiled. "This is the practice, learning to sense when you're out of balance, when you're grasping too tightly, trying too hard, striving too intensely, taking things too seriously. The string is too tight. When you're too loose, not practicing, not paying attention, Lost in laziness or indulgence, the string is too loose. The middle way is like walking a tightrope. You're constantly making small adjustments. You notice when you're leaning too far one way and correct. It's not a static position you achieve once. It's a dynamic balance you maintain through awareness. Another student said, "But Master, doesn't the middle way sound mediocre? Shouldn't we strive for excellence, push ourselves to the limit?" The Buddha looked at him with understanding. "You confuse the middle way with mediocrity. The middle way is not about being lukewarm or half-hearted. It's about optimally engaged, not so intense that you burn out, not so casual that nothing happens. The string tuned just right can make the most beautiful music. The string tuned too tight or too loose makes no music at all." Think of a flame. Too small, it provides no light or heat. Too large, it consumes everything and burns out quickly. The right size flame provides light and warmth sustainably. This is the middle way, finding the intensity that can be maintained, that serves without destroying. "But how do we find this balance?" another student asked. "Through awareness," the Buddha said. "You must become sensitive to yourself, to when you're pushing too hard or not enough. Your body tells you. It becomes tense, sick, exhausted when the string is too tight. It becomes dull, heavy, lethargic when the string is too loose. Your mind tells you. It becomes anxious, obsessive, rigid when too tight. It becomes scattered, unmotivated, foggy when too loose." The practice is to listen, not to some external rule or ideal, but to your actual experience. How are you right now? Too tight? Too loose? What adjustment is needed? This moment-to-moment awareness and adjustment, this is the middle way. A student said, "So the purpose is to find balance." The purpose is to be so present that you naturally find balance. Balance is not something you achieve once. It's something that arises naturally from awareness. When you're present, you notice when you're out of balance and naturally correct. This is the middle way, not a destination, but a practice of continuous awareness and adjustment. Years after the Buddha's passing, his disciples would teach this lesson to new students using the story of the vina. Neither too tight nor too loose, they would say. This applies to everything, your practice, your work, your relationships, your life. Always seeking the balance, always adjusting, always listening to what's needed now. And they would add, the Buddha's awakening came not from extreme practices, but from the middle way. This should tell us something important about purpose. The purpose is not found in extreme striving or extreme renunciation, but in balance, in the middle way that can be sustained, that serves life rather than consuming it. This teaching of the middle way is essential to understanding the Buddha's message about purpose. Many people approach spiritual life with extremes, either taking it too seriously, becoming rigid and self-punishing, or not taking it seriously enough, remaining casual and uncommitted. The middle way is neither of these. It's finding the balance that can be sustained, that serves your awakening without destroying your life. It's practicing with dedication, but not with grim intensity. It's engaging fully, but not burning out. It's taking care of practical life while not being consumed by it. The metaphor of the vina string is perfect. Too tight and it breaks. Too loose, it makes no music. This applies to every aspect of life. Work too hard and you burn out. Work too little and nothing is accomplished. Practice too intensely and you become rigid. Practice too casually and transformation doesn't happen. The key teaching is that balance is not static. It's not something you figure out once and then maintain forever. Life is constantly changing, and what was balanced yesterday might not be balanced today. You must stay aware, sensitive to your actual experience, constantly making small adjustments. This makes balance a practice rather than an achievement. You're always in the process of finding balance, always adjusting, always listening to what's needed now. This requires presence. You can't find balance if you're not paying attention to your actual experience. Consider your own life. Where might you be too tight, pushing too hard, being too serious, striving too intensely? Where might you be too loose, avoiding necessary effort, being too casual, not engaging enough? And how can you find the middle way, the balance that allows sustainable practice and genuine transformation? The Buddha's awakening came from the middle way. This is significant. He tried both extremes, luxury and asceticism, and found neither led to awakening. It was only when he found balance, taking care of the body without being enslaved by pleasure, practicing with discipline but not with self-destruction, that awakening became possible. This suggests that the purpose is found not in extremes but in balance, not in dramatic gestures but in sustainable practice, not in all or nothing but in moment-to-moment awareness and adjustment. Rest in this teaching. Feel where in your life you might need to adjust, tightening where you're too loose, loosening where you're too tight, and know that this is the practice, this continuous finding and refinding of balance, this middle way that can be walked for a lifetime. Breathe. Find your balance right now. Are you too tight? Soften. Too loose? Engage. And know that this is the practice, this continuous finding and refinding of balance, this middle way that can be walked for a lifetime.
Part 13. Integration and Living. The Returning Monk. A monk had spent 20 years in a monastery, practicing intensively, studying deeply, developing profound understanding. He felt he had found life's purpose in spiritual practice and contemplation. But as he approached middle age, something called to him. He felt a pull to return to the world, to live an ordinary life, to integrate what he had learned in the protected environment of the monastery into the chaos and challenge of everyday existence. When he told his teacher he was leaving, the teacher asked, "Why go? You have everything you need for practice here." The monk thought carefully. "I feel I've learned the principles, understood the teachings, developed the capacity for presence, but it's all been in ideal conditions, silence, simplicity, support. I want to see if this understanding holds up in ordinary life, in the mess and noise and complexity of the world." The teacher nodded. "This is a valid impulse, but know this, the world will test you. It's easy to be peaceful in a monastery. It's easy to be present when nothing disturbs you. The real test is whether you can maintain awareness in the midst of challenge, distraction, difficulty." "I understand," the monk said. "Do you?" the teacher asked gently. "You've lived for 20 years with the purpose of spiritual development. In the world, you'll be surrounded by people who have very different purposes, making money, raising families, pursuing success. You'll be challenged to maintain your understanding while engaging fully with ordinary life." "That's exactly what I want to do," the monk said, "to see if this understanding is real or just a monastery construct. To see if purpose can be lived in the world, not just contemplated in retreat." He left the monastery and returned to the city where he'd grown up. He got a job, a modest apartment, began living an ordinary life, and immediately he encountered challenges. In the monastery, anger rarely arose. Everyone was committed to peace. But in the workplace, he encountered difficult personalities,
office politics, unfair treatment. His capacity for equanimity was tested daily. In the monastery, there were few possessions to desire, but in the world, he was surrounded by advertising, by people displaying their acquisitions, by the constant message that he needed more. His practice of contentment was challenged. In the monastery, relationships were simple and boundaried, but in the world, he developed friendships, romantic interests, complex emotional entanglements. His understanding was tested in the fire of actual intimacy. For the first year, he struggled. He felt his hard-won peace slipping away. He found himself reactive, distracted, caught in the very patterns he thought he'd transcended. He wondered if he'd made a mistake leaving the monastery. One night, feeling discouraged, he sat in meditation in his small apartment. The neighbor's television was loud. Cars honked outside. His mind churned with work stress. Nothing like the serene silence of the monastery. And suddenly he laughed. He'd been trying to recreate monastery conditions in the middle of the city, expecting external silence to support internal peace. But that wasn't the practice. The practice was to find peace even here, even now, even with all this noise and stress and complexity. He realized that his 20 years in the monastery had been necessary preparation, but they weren't the completion of the path. They were training wheels. Now he was learning to ride without them, to maintain presence and purpose in conditions that weren't designed to support it. Over the next years, something shifted. He stopped expecting the world to accommodate his practice and started bringing his practice to the world. When anger arose at work, he noticed it, breathed with it, responded rather than reacted. When desire arose for things he didn't need, he acknowledged it without judgment and chose differently. When relationships became complex, he practiced presence without trying to control outcomes. He discovered that purpose in the world looked different than purpose in the monastery. In the monastery, purpose was clear and singular: practice, study, develop awareness. In the world, purpose was multiple, context-dependent, constantly shifting. At work, purpose was to do his job well with presence and integrity. With friends, purpose was to be genuinely there, to listen, to care. In romantic relationship, purpose was to love without possessing, to be vulnerable while maintaining boundaries. In daily life, purpose was to remain aware while managing hundreds of practical concerns. He realized that purpose in the world wasn't one thing. It was the practice of being present and responding appropriately to whatever life presented. Sometimes that meant meditation. Sometimes it meant cleaning the kitchen. Sometimes it meant hard conversations. Sometimes it meant just sitting with difficulty without trying to fix it. A former fellow monk visited him later and asked, "Do you regret leaving? Have you lost what you gained in the monastery?" The returned monk considered this. "I haven't lost what I learned. I've tested it, challenged it, applied it in conditions that weren't ideal. And yes, sometimes I fail. I get caught in reactivity, in distraction, in old patterns. But the practice is in noticing and returning, not in never failing." "Is it harder than monastery life?" his friend asked. "In some ways, yes. There's no bell telling you to meditate. There's no schedule supporting your practice. You have to maintain awareness while dealing with job stress, financial concerns, relationship complexity, all the noise and demand of ordinary life. But in other ways, it's the real practice. The monastery was training. This is application." "And purpose?" his friend asked. "Have you maintained clarity about purpose?"
Purpose has become simpler and more complex simultaneously, the monk replied. Simpler because it's always just this: be present, act wisely, reduce suffering. More complex because what that looks like changes constantly.
At work, in relationship, doing laundry, stuck in traffic, purpose is the same, but its expression is endlessly varied. He paused, then added, "The great discovery is that purpose doesn't require special conditions. You don't have to be in a monastery or on retreat or in ideal circumstances. Purpose is available in traffic, in conflict, in mundane tasks, in the messy complexity of ordinary life. In fact, this is where purpose really matters, not in protected spaces, but in the actual living of life." Years later, this returned monk became an informal teacher to others trying to integrate spiritual understanding with worldly life. He would tell them, "Don't imagine that purpose is only for quiet meditation or spiritual practice. Purpose is lived in every moment, in your work, your relationships, your daily tasks. The practice is to bring presence and wisdom to all of it, not to separate spiritual life from ordinary life." And he would add, "It's easier to be spiritual in ideal conditions. The real test is whether your understanding serves you in difficult conditions. Can you be present in conflict, wise in complexity, compassionate under stress? This is where purpose is truly fulfilled, not in perfection, but in the continuous practice of bringing awareness to actual life." This story addresses the crucial question of integration, how to live purpose in the world, not just understand it conceptually or practice it in protected conditions. The monk's journey from monastery to ordinary life mirrors the challenge everyone faces, taking understanding and making it lived reality. His initial struggles are important, recognizing that what seemed solid in the monastery became shaky in the world. This is common and not a failure. It's discovering that real integration requires adapting to conditions that don't support practice, maintaining awareness when everything around you is designed to distract. The key realization that he needed to bring practice to the world rather than expecting the world to support his practice is crucial. Purpose in the world requires meeting reality as it is, not as you wish it were. You practice with noise, with stress, with complexity, not despite these things, but including them. His discovery that purpose in the world is both simpler and more complex captures an important truth. The principle is always the same: be present, act wisely, reduce suffering. But the application varies infinitely based on context. Purpose with colleagues looks different than purpose with family. Purpose in conflict looks different than purpose in harmony. Consider your own life. You're not in a monastery, probably. You're in the world with all its demands, distractions, complexities. Can you fulfill purpose here, not by escaping to ideal conditions, but by bringing presence and wisdom to actual conditions? The purpose is not to achieve perfect awareness in perfect conditions. It's to practice presence in imperfect conditions. It's to remain awake while dealing with traffic, bills, difficult people, job stress, relationship complexity. This is the real practice, not meditation on a cushion, but awareness in the midst of life. The monk's teaching to others that purpose is lived in every moment, in work and relationships and daily tasks, is essential. Purpose is not separate from life. Purpose is how you meet life, with presence or distraction, with wisdom or reactivity, with compassion or judgment. You don't need special conditions to fulfill purpose. You need to bring awareness to the conditions you have, right here, right now, in this situation, with all its imperfections. Can you be present? Can you respond wisely? Can you act with compassion? This is purpose lived, not just contemplated. Rest in this teaching. Whatever your circumstances, busy or quiet, easy or difficult, ideal or challenging, purpose is available, not by changing circumstances, but by bringing presence to them. Not by escaping to somewhere better, but by being here more fully. The monastery was preparation, the world is application,
and application is where purpose truly matters, where understanding becomes lived wisdom, where practice becomes life. Breathe. You don't need different circumstances. You need greater presence with these circumstances. This is the path. This is the practice. This is purpose lived in the real world, in actual life, in this very moment.
Final meditation, resting in purpose. As we come toward the close of this long journey through teachings and stories, let us rest together in a simple meditation on purpose. Settle into a comfortable position. Let your body be supported, held by what's beneath you. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it with a gentle sigh. You have listened to many teachings tonight about purpose, about what most people think it is, and what the Buddha discovered it actually is, about seeking and finding, striving and resting, doing and being. But now, let all of that go. Let all the words, all the concepts, all the ideas about purpose simply fall away and come back to what's most simple, most immediate, most real. Right now, in this moment, you are aware. Notice this, not as a concept, but as direct experience. You are conscious. Awareness is present. This is not something you created or achieved. It simply is. Feel your body breathing. You don't have to make it breathe. It's breathing on its own. Feel the gentle rise and fall, the air moving in and out. This breath, this body, this awareness, this is your life happening right now. And this is the purpose. Not something to achieve in the future, not something complex to figure out, just this, being aware, being alive, being present for this moment. You don't need to add anything to this moment for it to be complete. You don't need to become someone different. You don't need to achieve something special. Right now, just as you are, you fulfill purpose simply by being conscious, by being present, by being here. Let yourself rest in this recognition. You are already what you've been seeking. You are already home. Not after more practice, not when you understand more, not when you achieve something, but now, simply because you are. The purpose the Buddha discovered is available in every moment, not as something to strive for, but as something to notice. You are aware. You are here. This is enough. This is everything. As you rest here, let go of all striving. Let go of seeking. Let go of the belief that you need to be somewhere else, someone else, something else. Just be here. Just be present. Just be aware. This is it. This simple being conscious, being alive, being here. This is what all the teachings point to. This is what you've been seeking, and it's been here all along, waiting for you to notice it. Rest, breathe, be. Nothing more needed, nothing more possible, just this moment, this awareness, this simple being alive. This is purpose, already fulfilled, already complete, already here. May you rest in this recognition. May you wake to it again and again. May you live from the understanding that purpose is not somewhere else, but here, in every moment, in every breath, in the simple miracle of being aware. Rest deeply, sleep peacefully, and know that you are already home. All is well. All has always been well. All will always be well. You are the purpose. Being itself is the purpose. This awareness, this presence, this simple existence, this is what you've been seeking. And it's here. It's always been here. It will always be here. Rest in this. Rest in purpose fulfilled. Rest in being home. Good night, dear one. You are already what you seek.
The final word. Dear listener, we have traveled far together through these teachings, yet we've gone nowhere. We've sought the purpose of life and discovered it was never missing. We've journeyed to understanding and found we were already home. The Buddha's answer to life's purpose, the answer that 99% of people miss, is not complicated. It's not hidden in obscure texts or available only to spiritual adepts. It's simpler than the mind wants to accept. Be present, be aware, recognize what you already are. End suffering by seeing its causes. Live from wholeness rather than from lack. This moment, right now, is your life, not preparation for life, not a stepping stone to some future real life. This is it, your actual life, happening now. And the purpose is not to do something special with this life, but to actually be present for it, to live it instead of thinking about it, to recognize that being alive and aware is itself the miracle, the purpose, the completion. You don't need to achieve anything to fulfill your purpose. You don't need to become someone special or do something impressive. You simply need to wake up to what's already true, that you're aware, you're alive, you're here. And this is not nothing. This is everything. All the seeking, all the striving, all the anxiety about purpose, it can end. Not in some future when you finally achieve enlightenment, but now, in the simple recognition that what you've been seeking is what's doing the seeking. You are already what you're trying to become. You are already home. This doesn't mean life ends or becomes static. Life continues with all its richness and variety. You still work, love, create, help, experience joy and sorrow, but now you do it from wholeness rather than from lack. You live because you're alive, not because you're trying to prove something or achieve something or become something. The Buddha sat under a tree and made a simple discovery. Suffering arises from craving and aversion, from the mind's constant wanting things to be different than they are. And when that craving ceases, when that resistance releases, what remains is naturally peaceful, naturally complete, naturally home. This is available to you, not after more practice, not when you're more spiritual, not when you finally understand enough. Now, in this moment, can you simply be present? Can you release, even for a moment, the chronic seeking, the constant feeling of not yet being where you need to be? Can you rest in the simple awareness that you exist, that you're conscious, that you're alive? This is the purpose, not something to achieve, but something to recognize as already fulfilled. May all beings wake up to their true nature. May all beings recognize they are already complete. May all beings end suffering through understanding its causes. May all beings know the peace of being home. You are not on a journey to somewhere else. You are already here, already home, already complete. The seeking can end. The striving can cease. Life can simply be lived, fully, presently, completely. This is the Buddha's answer. This is the purpose that 99% miss while seeking something more complicated, something more impressive, something in the future. But you now know. The purpose is here. The purpose is now. The purpose is this, simply being aware, being present, being alive. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more was ever needed. You are already home. Rest well, dear friend. Live fully. Be present. This is the purpose. This is the path. This is the answer. Welcome home.